Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chess.com's coverage of the 2022 FIDE Women's Candidates Tournament. My name is Fiona Steil-Anthony, and I'm delighted to be joined once again by Women Grandmaster Tatev Avramyan. Tatev, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Fiona. It's great to be here with you.
Absolutely. For those of you in the chat who were here, what is it at this point? 3 days ago, Tatev and I covered game one together. It was quite the fight, quite the long game. Today, game three, only two classical games to go. But before we get into that, let's see and take a look at the remaining field in this candidates tournament.
So we have Alexandra Goryachkina, who defeated Katerina Lachno against Tan Zhongyi, who eliminated. I'm sorry, Alexandra Goryachkina, who eliminated Alexandra Kostyanyuk, and Tan Zhongyi, who eliminated Katerina Lachno. So far, we have two draws, and we're coming back from a break. Yesterday was a day off, and we will have Tan Zhongyi with the black pieces against Goryachkina.
And they are fighting, of course, for the right to play the winner of Pool A, that's late Tingzhe. So she awaits in the final of the candidates tournament. They will play a match sometime in the beginning of next year. And the winner of that match will advance to play defending world champion Zhu Wenjun from China. So quite a lot at stake with only two games remaining here. Let's take a quick look now also at the bracket. So some of the things you talked about already about how did Tan Zhongyi get here, how did Goryachkina get here. We're at game three. What do you make of both the players' performances so far?
Yeah, so the players actually had to go to really tough fields to get here. So you mentioned like Lei Tengji, so she's the winner. She defeated both of the Muzachuk sisters, very strong players. And Goryachkina and Tan Zhongyi, so far it's been a very high contentious match. We saw in game one, such a roller coaster game where Tan Zhongyi was pressing for a long time, but then the game ended in a draw. And Goryachkina, she will have the white pieces again. We have two games left before the playoffs. So these are very high pressure games. We were talking about it before, and we're predicting maybe we can expect quicker draws. And because it's with two games to go, maybe it's a little bit too risky to take too many risks. But we will see what happens today.
Absolutely. We saw a second ago, Alexandra Goryachkina is already at the board, 5 minutes to go until the game. So that gives us a little bit of time to finally check the prize fund for this tournament. So this women's candidates tournament, this is for Pool A and B. Combined total prize fund of 250,000 euros. And the winner of this match, actually, between Goryachkina and Tan, will be guaranteed a minimum of 50,000 euros. Tatev, not a bad payday.
Yeah, $50,000. It's quite a bit of money, a big amount of money, for future tournaments and future training. And so we mentioned there's a lot on the line in this game. So of course, there's also the incentive of taking home a very big prize.
Absolutely. And we see actually that Tan Zhongyi has just arrived. So both players are there nicely in time. Tatev, I see that in the chat. Where did I see it? F. Dublam is saying, love the picture of Levon. That wasn't there 3 days ago, was it? Or did I just sleep on it?
No, I'm in a different location today.
Very nice.
So there's actually different there are photos of different chess players behind me, but I picked this spot. Levon is one of my favorite players, so we're gonna get some inspiration from Levon today.
Let's hopefully Levon's spirits will be with them. Levon, of course, a player who never fails to produce interesting games. As we go get closer to the start, let's have a look at the format overview. So the candidates tournament, it's an 8-player single elimination bracket knockout. And yeah, we talked about already how Zhu Wenjun awaits for the match. And Tatev, maybe you can quickly tell us about the match format and time control.
So each match is 4 games. So if the first player to get 2.5 points claims the match. And so in this match, we are halfway through. So the 2 games have been played. So we have 2 more games left. And the time control is a standard time control, 90 plus 30. So the players have 90 minutes to make 40 moves, and they get 30-second increment after each move. And once they reach move 40, they get additional 30 minutes, and they get this 30-second increment after each move. And we saw in game one that this increment is actually quite helpful. We saw the players get quite long time, but to make quick moves in a row and to build up the time. And after move 40 and this 30-minute addition, there is no more added time. So 30 minutes until the plus 30-second increment until the end of the game.
So no more added time after move 40. On the other hand, after move 40, they are allowed to offer a draw, not before. And I think that's what happened the game 2 days ago. So not the one we were commenting on, but the game two. As soon as move 40 was reached, it was an equal rook ending a draw offer came. So we'll see what happens today. Will we get another marathon game? Will it be a slightly more short-lived affair? We talked about risk-taking, of course. The less games until the tiebreak, the less risk in general players are willing to take, which is completely natural. And let me just say, there's some big names a lot of people in the chat already. I know it's quite early for a lot of our viewers. Good to see Ketty here with us. Hello, Ketty. Hello, Nicola. Thank you so much for the bits. There's too many people to name everyone. Big shout out, as always, to all our mods who are here. I see Aisa, I see Chesswind. So yeah, great to see everyone. And as always, feel free to ask us your questions during the game, questions, comments, and we'll be happy to answer them all. Big shout out, of course, to BJH. I think it's Benjamin, right? I never knew before. It's funny how a lot of Twitch people, you just either sort of know their usernames, and then eventually you learn to, put their names to connect that it's the same people. But yeah, good morning and welcome to everyone to this game 3. As we see that the players are getting ready, I think we'll get a handshake in just a few moments. There we go.
Yeah, the game is about to start. And let's see what opening can we predict today. I think Goryachkina will start again with d4, although she plays both moves, of course. I see the clock is running. She hasn't made her move yet. But last time, I think we're trying to predict things and we're wrong.
Yeah. Maybe she'll mix it up. It's interesting that she takes her time. No, she doesn't mix it up. Sticks to 1d4. And what do you think? What approach do you expect from Tan Zhongyi? Do you think we could see a repeat of this a6 Queen's Gambit declined, or do you think she will mix it up?
I think she will still play Queen. Okay, never mind. So she will play Knight f6 on the first. Maybe she'll play the Nimza. Well, I think she will try to play something very solid. Something. Maybe she will try to surprise her opponent again. So I think we will see a Nimza, but there's a lot of room to vary it up in the Nimza. There's a lot of lines. So we do see a Nimza. It's possible that Goryachkina will play Knight f3. Maybe we'll see some kind of a Catalan. So let's see if she's already thinking on this move or she's expecting this. I would think she would expect a Nimza because I believe Tan Zhongyi is a Nimza player mainly. I was looking up her games. Okay, she goes Knight f3. Bishop b4 check, played very quickly. So some kind of a preparation, so some kind of a Bogo Indian. So I would expect Bishop d2 to cover the check. And then that's where Black starts to have a lot of options. So either with a5, I think it's a move, Queen e7, sometimes the bishop slides back. All kinds of moves are possible. It's also possible to play Knight bd2 here, but I think Bishop d2 is the main line.
And so, as you were saying, the nature of the resulting positions are in general very solid for Black?
Yeah, I mean, in general, d4 openings are quite solid, and Nimza or Queen's Indian, those are like very classical openings. So, of course, it's possible for the game to get sharp at some point. But also, Goryachkina is not the kind of player who looks for some kind of a sharp position right after the opening. So I do think we will see something a little more on the solid side.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Interesting that Goryachkina is taking her first little think here of the game. I think, as you were saying, surely this is something she must have expected. So, what do you think? She's just deciding between lines, or just trying to remember, or just easing into the game?
Maybe she wasn't expecting the check. Maybe she was
Hmm.
expecting d5. Okay, so she goes for knight bd2, but we also saw this in game one of the match when she was a bit surprised in the
Hmm.
opening, so she took some time. She kind of figured out what structure she's going to play and go for it. So knight bd2 is also a major move in this position. So I'm expecting black will castle. This is a very logical move. Black has
Hmm.
developed all their king side, so it's time to castle. And then I would think a3. This would be the main line in this opening. And okay, I'm not right. So last time we saw this position with the no, she played this against Lahno with the knight on c3, but she was white, so she goes d5 instead of castle. So
What?
what?
Mm-hmm.
So like this line exists, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
d5, but now we have the knight on b2, which is slightly different. So it's actually interesting because in a lot of the lines with the knight on c3, there's this knight e4 options harassing that knight, but the knight on b2 on one hand is blocking the bishop, but on the other hand is better defended. So I would think queen a4 probably forcing the knight to c6, which is we can say maybe a bit of an achievement for
Okay.
white because usually black doesn't like to play a knight on c6. They like to keep this the path of this pawn open so they can challenge the center, but also the queen on a4 can be a bit misplayed.
Okay, so queen a4. Are there other options? What if white kicks the bishop with a3? Where do you expect
Yeah, I
it?
think this is also possible, but after bishop e7, we get some kind of a queen gambit declined, and the
Hmm.
question is how is the knight on d2? So now, like this move order doesn't make as much sense because this check we can just play c6, play bishop d7. So the whole point of this check in this position in the Rogozin and in this position with knight bd2 is to force this knight c6 move, which
Hmm.
is not ideal for black because black really at some point wants to challenge the center somehow, maybe take on c4 or c5. So forcing the knight to c6 is a concession for black.
Hmm. I did just open a quick opening tree, and yeah, queen a4 uh, is the most played move by a little distance. So even more curious that Alexandra is thinking. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, we saw a similar thing the other day where she took a bit of time in the very early moves, but later she sped up, so it became clear, she wasn't out of book, or she wasn't. Sometimes I think it's just hard to. I think every player, every player handles these things in a different way. Some will just blitz out everything they know. Others will take pauses at different moments. So yeah, I think nothing out of the ordinary so far. There
Yeah,
was a.
so I
Mhm.
was I was actually also looking up this line. So I see there's a Mamijarov game from this year and Yesipenko game from last year, but we don't see a whole lot of games. I think most people castle instead of d5, and
Mhm.
we said, like you said, we said this in game one too. And I think she's just thinking of what kind of setup she wants to go for. If she wants to give this check, I mean, I understand, like, you know, like the knight on b2 is a bit misplaced, but I don't think this is like the end of the world. We can play e3. Black did waste time by going
Mhm.
before to e7. At the same time, white wasted time by playing a3. So we can debate if which one is more significant, like this pawn on a3 is it some kind of achievement for white, or is playing bishop b4 bishop e7 such a waste of a tempo. But I think this is also a very playable move. But I think it's also safe to conclude that Tan Jung-gi has played something that Goryachkina wasn't expecting, which is
Mhm.
why she's the one thinking in the opening.
Yeah, and I guess so far she will be quite happy. I really think that today we'll see um, something very solid where I think both players will, if they can get a small risk-free advantage that they can press, they'll be happy to do that. But I don't expect any of the players to take any major risks to take a big gamble here today with only two games to go.
Yeah, last time we saw that Goryachkina, she had a slight advantage in the opening, but
Mm,
then all of a sudden we also saw things turn around, and for a long time she was suffering. And then, of course, the game ended in this king and pawn endgame, which I think, for us, we knew it was always a draw, but I
mm,
think this shock where you go from just pricing and all of a sudden you're down upon in an
I
end
know.
game, in a pawn end game, and I think just the shock of that is can be very unpleasant.
I
So I think
actually, mhm. Sorry,
even if
go
we
ahead.
start with a very
Mhm.
solid position, there's still a lot that can happen later in the game.
I was shocked that game we were commentating on. I don't know. I mean, I didn't watch the whole interview. I just saw this quote on Twitter, and I have no idea because I know Alexandra gives her answers in Russian and then they're translated. So I'm not sure if it was mistranslated or slightly taken out of context. But I saw this tweet, and I should really find it rather than quoting out of my. But basically, where Alexandra said that she felt she didn't have any big problems in the game, and then the quote said something like, maybe she could have played better, but she didn't. I was like, okay. Like, or maybe she
Was
could
this
have.
goodbye?
I have no idea if something went wrong in the translation because also I was very surprised that she would say that she felt she didn't have any major problems because at some point the position really felt like it was hanging by a thread.
But I like that she could have played better, but she didn't.
Let me find the tweet so that I'm not, I'll find the tweet
I
to
like your
make sure.
version better already.
But it was very similar. I'll find the tweet. I'll let you. I think we had a couple of moves. I'll let you go through the moves and I'll find the tweet.
Okay, so e3 was played, and black castles immediately. Of course, black has already run out of useful moves, so there's not much else to do for black. So black castles, and now I expect white to play a3, kick this bishop away. So this bishop can go either to d6 or e7. The bishop on e7 is comfortable, and now white can wait for black to take on c4 at some point, so she can take back on c4 in one move. So the bishop would go to c4 from f1 instead of e2 or d3. For example, if I move my bishop, so this would be a loss of a tempo. So instead, maybe now white can start expanding on the queen side, challenging this c5 move. And if a5, b5 is possible, I think. And also maybe I'm not. I wanted to say c5, but it was still pinned. Yeah, I don't think rook b1 may be even possible, but I think c5 is also a possibility, trying
Mhm.
to expand on the queen side. So I think a4, a3, b4 can be very logical. And of course, here we're not worried about with white not castling so early because the position is close. So even if my king is in the center and I'm 2 moves away from castling, I'm not worried about any kind of attack or the position opening on
Mhm.
me immediately and this king coming into trouble.
Yeah, so we might see White try and grab some ground on the queen side. Meanwhile, Tatev, I found the tweet. I wasn't so far off. So they quoted her in English as saying, I did not think that my position was that challenging. I didn't feel like I got any major practical problems. Perhaps my opponent could play better somewhere, but she did not.
Yeah, it's always nice when your opponent does not play better than they could have.
But
Uh,
yeah, I was very surprised, especially about that she didn't feel she got any major practical problems. I mean, at some point it felt like any move could be the end if she didn't find the most precise. And yeah, we remember that moment with this Queen C2, which was maybe, yeah.
so, okay, so bishop d3 has been
Hmm.
played in this position. But going back to the game one, maybe like she came up with this fortress, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference I think between analyzing. First of all, like doing commentary and playing, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
a completely different feel, and having the engine on and not having the engine on, because it's possible that she had this fortress and she thought,
Yeah.
okay, my position is bad, but I'm holding. There is no way to
Mm-hmm.
advance, and like, okay, I'm on the defensive side. I'm slightly worse. Like, I have to be maybe a little more accurate. Like, I think there are some positions where she was like double checking her moves. She was taking a bit of time, but maybe she thought, okay, like I misplayed something. I got a bad position, but I built this fortress, and yeah, like I'm assuming this interview was like right after the game, right
Mm-hmm.
before they had a
Yeah.
chance to look at it. Yeah, so she thought, okay, my position was bad. Maybe she had some chances to press or to win, but she didn't find them. She didn't play them. So like I helped without too many problems. But when we're analyzing,
Mm.
we see this engine bar go up and down, and then like the engine says, okay, black has something, and then we start looking for it, which makes it more likely that we will find it. And then if we don't find it, we just
Mm.
ask the engine.
Yeah, I
But
think you make a great point about how how different the perception can be. And of course, Goryachkina, she's such a fantastically strong player. I mean, even this Queen C2, I mean, it looked winning to us, but I don't know if you had I didn't have another look after. I mean, we're not even positive that it was really over, or could there be some more resources there? So for sure, there was never anything clear cut. There was something which to us looked very strong, but yeah, I mean, as you're saying, the players during the game do not have access to the engine, and yeah, who knows? Her feeling maybe wasn't that far off.
Yeah, because if you don't see this queen c2 move,
Yeah.
then you always feel like, okay, black is on the better side of this, but they exchange this queen side pawns, and then okay, white had to be super accurate, but she came up with this fortress, and then like her moves were pretty easy after that, because there was few pieces left on the board. There's some checks, maybe some tricks, but she
Mm.
defended very easily and very comfortably. So when you don't have this hint from the engine, not just telling you the moves, but telling you the evaluation of the position, it's a very different feeling.
Tatev, by the way, in this game, we currently lost the relay from the site. We saw that Tan Zhongyi made one more move, so we can just make it manually on the board, and that move was B6.
Okay. Yeah, so if we go back and see what happened, so castle happened, so she didn't go a3, so she left the bishop here, which is because white is arguing that the
Hmm.
bishop on b4 is misplaced, so instead of waiting a move and kicking it away, just kind of leaving it there and asking black, what is your bishop doing on b4? At some point, I would assume black will slide the bishop back. So bishop d3 was played. So take on c4, which makes sense because in this kind of queen's gambit declined position, black always wants to, at least ideally, wants to wait for white to move the bishop so they can take on c4. And the bishop wasted a move. It went on d3 first and then took on c4. And now b6. Of course, the bishop cannot really develop here. So maybe she has this flashback to game one where this bishop just got stuck forever. But now this is actually a very ideal diagonal for the bishop. The bishop will be quite happy here.
In fact,
Uh,
it's already on B7, so Goryachkina castled here,
and
and
bishop went
bishop
here.
E7, yeah.
Yeah, so versions of this position is possible. Usually the knight is on c3 and the bishop is on e7. But let's see what's going on here. So
Hmm.
black's play, I think, is quite comfortable. So this knight will go on d7. I think this bishop will probably still go back and go c5 and challenge in the center. And the question is, what is going to be white's idea? Where is white going to put her pieces? So I think the queen has a square, and maybe still a3 b4, trying to make the c5 move a bit more uncomfortable. Because if I play a3, black doesn't really want to do this, giving up this long-term two bishops. For example, if you go after this bishop, sometimes this bishop slides back to e1, which
Hmm.
looks very funny. But the whole idea is to try to keep the bishop pair, maybe challenge this knight, and at some point, this bishop actually goes on this diagonal, and it becomes very comfortable for white to have this bishop pair.
Hmm. Yeah, so we don't expect black to capture on d2, as you mentioned. More likely she will slide the bishop back all the way to e7.
Yeah, a3. Bishop will go to e7. So I think b4 is possible because black wants to
Hmm.
play c5 at some point. But if c5, then we can take, and rook goes to b1,
Hmm.
attacking this bishop, which is quite comfortable. Sometimes maybe the pawn can go. I don't think it's necessary. Or in this position, maybe we can take this way first and put a pawn on b5, and now
Hmm.
black is stuck with this pawn, and this pawn is really blocking this bishop, even though it's a passed pawn, but that looks kind of uncomfortable for black having this pawn here. So it's important to consider options. So we don't just automatically take b takes c5. We can take with this pawn first, and then play b5. So it makes the c5 move a bit more difficult. So maybe black needs to start challenging on this side. But after something like even b5, maybe or rook b1, now c5 becomes a little more difficult.
Hmm.
And in this position, I think white wants to play queen e2, bishop. If I give white a lot of moves in a row, I go queen e2, bishop e2, pawn e4, and then the position will be very, very comfortable.
Hmm. So yeah, and when you play e4, are you never worried? Are we never worried that d4 will become weak or that the center will become a bit loose?
I think especially in this position, no, because my bishop will go to b2, will
Hmm.
cover d4, and then we can put rooks in the center. So of course, black cannot allow all of this because if black
Hmm.
allows this pawn to go to e4, and rooks in the center, then black will just suffer. So in this position, black will have to go, I think, a5 immediately and start challenging white's expansion on this side of the board. So it's something like in rook b1, I think it's possible, of course, but then we see this weakness of the b4 pawn, which becomes an immediate target, and maybe we can start challenging with something like knight c6. And at the same time, um, okay, we can also play b5. So it's very important in general for black to challenge white center because especially I see it with my students, and I think a lot of beginner players they really struggle against d4 openings because sometimes it just doesn't feel as
Hmm.
natural,
Yeah.
like as opposed to like e4 e5. It's like classical like Spanish or Italian positions. I feel like a lot of my students are like under 1200, 1400. They really struggle with these d4 openings. And sometimes I see them, they'll make normal moves, they'll develop, like, knight will goes to d7, they make a couple more moves, and then their position becomes really miserable. So because in the d4 openings, white has more pawns in the center, like two pawns in the center, and black only has one, it's really crucial for black to be
Hmm.
able to get in the c5 move at some point.
You were saying that your students sometimes, I mean, even I've made, I've made that experience at a much higher level than just 1400 of suffering in these classical D4, D5 kind of structures, so much so that I at some point just stopped playing one D5. Um, One thing that I'm perplexed by a little bit at this point in this game is the time management. Because the movie that you were highlighting looked quite natural to me for Goryachkina. What do you think she's thinking about?
I think it's the same thing as in game one. She's just
Mm,
deciding her setup, where her pieces are going to go. She doesn't like her openings are not like concrete, and there is nothing really concrete here. This is not some kind of a night orb or some kind of a
mhm,
dragon. So I think and I think she likes to play this kind of very classical, deciding where my piece goes, like setups instead of like the short variations. I think she's just deciding. Maybe she's trying to remember some games, some ideas, or she's just deciding where to put her pieces. Also, actually, very interesting. She doesn't go b4; she goes b3, which has been played only once before.
yeah, and by unrated players if we're looking at the same game.
Yeah, so very unusual choice. I
But
wonder why
interesting.
she decides to play b3.
I just checked the tree before this. I mean, we were already in quite rare territory. Like, I don't know where. I think, yeah, I don't know. After B6 was already, we already had like 20 something games. So the whole thing suddenly left this. I think Bishop D3, actually, as far as I can tell. From Bishop D3 onwards.
Yeah, that's where the tree
Yeah.
gets narrower. So what
Mm,
Fiona is talking about, when you look at a database, the database just lists all the games that have been played in the position. And we saw that on move 5, queen a4 is the main move. So it lists moves in an order of how frequently they're played. So queen a4 was the main move. Instead, she chose to play e3, castle. And again, this a3 before extension was more common, but bishop d3 is a less common move. So we're starting to enter very unknown territory. B6, but b6, I think this is almost an only move in this position. I don't think anything else makes much sense.
mhm,
And castle, bishop b7, very natural move. The bishop wants to be on the diagonal. And now b3. So I think the whole idea of b3. So I think we're going to see some kind of a very symmetrical structure because the knight goes to d7. And we see already this knight and bishop b2. So we're starting to see a very symmetrical structure because these pawns are going to get traded off. And the knights are the same. The bishop on b2 and
mhm,
b7 are the same. And structure will be very similar. And usually, I've always struggled playing this kind of symmetrical structures because you make one move and all of a sudden, something things starts to go wrong. Like for example, this pawn is not on a6 yet,
yeah.
and but I think something like a6 b5 can be useful in the future. And now white will decide if she wants to take on c5 or play queen e2 and allow black to take on d4 themselves.
Very interesting that Tan Zhongyi has actually been blitzing everything pretty much. Her longest think of the game, she spent a minute 40 on d takes c4 and a minute and a half on knight bd7, but every other move was just blitzed pretty much instantly. Tatev, I don't want to jinx it,
Oh no.
but something tells me that this game, I'm not saying it's going to be a quick draw, but um, okay, I mean, you said sometimes in these symmetrical positions things can go wrong, of course, but I think we're going to get something very, very even out of the opening here. Or do you think white can claim a small advantage?
Well, in symmetrical positions, because white is a move ahead, usually, like it can be a bit more pleasant for white.
Mhm,
So let's say in this position, and what you mentioned about the time management, I think the reason she's playing quickly is because her moves are just so logical and she
mhm,
just doesn't have a lot of options.
mhm,
Because once you make this commitment of taking on c4, then you have to think about like how am I going to develop my pieces. And we talked about this in last time that when you're thinking about piece development, you're not just thinking one piece at a time. You kind of want to think as a whole, like where do I see all
mhm,
my pieces going? What is my plan? So we see this bishop cannot get out, so bishop develops on this side. So once you play b6, this is the next natural move. Your opponent kicks you away, and bishop on e7 is more comfortable because on bishop on d6 can get hit with this like e4, e5 kind of
mhm,
moves in the future. So it's just a comfortable move. The knight has to go on d7, nothing else makes sense. And at this point, black just doesn't have any other useful move. There's like actually, if you think like candidate moves, like you cannot move your rooks. It doesn't make much sense. You cannot really move a piece. Your pieces don't really have squares to go to, so you have to strike in the center. You have to challenge white center, and you have to go c5. So in this position, I would expect either the queen will go to e2 with the idea of putting rooks in the center, or maybe immediately the rook will go to c1. Maybe this queen can go to b1 at some point. I've seen this kind of things before. and it will be a matter of who controls this files in the center, and
Mhm.
if white can make this black queen uncomfortable. So, for example, if we can imagine some moves, and then let's say the rook goes on d1. But kind of hard to imagine with a knight here, but maybe we can, like if the knight moves away, maybe here we can already see some
Mhm.
kind of trouble on this file.
Is
And
this
in
line? I know it was just an example you're giving to show how the Black Queen could
Mhm.
find, but I think it also tells us something about the position because we saw the bar drop. I guess Black in general doesn't want to be the one to capture on d4, right?
I think specifically when the rook goes on
Mm.
d1, no, but I think it's possible for black to do this. And in some position, I know that white is able to capture on c5 and go b4. And again, we see this expansion on the queen side. And if the pawn, so let's say instead of this, let's say I take on c5, let's say bishop takes, for
Mhm.
example. I think knight taking is more accurate, but if we do something like this, and we see how this knight on d7 becomes controlled because it cannot go on e5 and cannot go on c5, and it's more difficult for black to do the same and go a6 b5 because I'm attacking the a6 square. So
Mhm.
immediately we see maybe things become a bit more uncomfortable for black because this knight on d7 is just not going to be a very great piece in this position because the pawn on b4 and this bishop are really controlling it.
Mhm. Yeah, that
And we
makes
see we
sense.
have some more moves. So rook
Yeah,
went to
rook
c1.
c1. Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's a very logical move. And in this position, like I don't see much difference between the moves. For example, queen e2 and rook c1, unless this position somehow again is more concrete than I imagine it to be. Actually, I think maybe it's a bit more concrete for black. Maybe black needs to be more careful about playing something like a6 b5 immediately, or at least attempting to. Like I made this rook c8 move, but maybe after queen e2, this is already a bit uncomfortable because this a6 move cannot happen.
Mhm.
So maybe the so obviously like white can have the slight advantage here. So the onus is on black to be more accurate and make sure she equalizes the position.
So let's talk about the Black Queen. Where does that queen want to be ideally? What do you think?
So this after something like a6, I think this queen can slide to b8 actually,
Mhm.
and the rook will go to d8. Because if we look at the position and we think about what are the ideal squares for all my pieces, the rook on f8. So like at some point the spawns will be traded off, right? It's not like the
Mhm.
spawns are gonna they're facing
Mhm.
each other, they're not gonna stay here forever. So at some point the spawns will come off the board one way or another. Either white will take here or black will take here. So which will leave us with two open files, the C file and the D file. And for white it's very easy. White will play like queen here. Again, maybe queen here can go here, but to me queen e2 looks like a very natural square. And uh, the rook will go to d1. So white's
Mhm.
setup in this regard is a bit more comfortable because this bishop has moved, so the queen can go here. And but this bishop is like black would love to be able to do the same, right? Put a queen in e7, but
Mhm.
they can't. So I can see like at some point black will play maybe a6 b5. In that case the queen can go to b6, but in some position I've also seen this queen going to b8. And just to make sure that the rook can go to d8, so both sides are fighting for the c and d file. So it's not like one side has control of one of the files and the other side has just completely given it up.
Okay, so that all makes sense. And then I guess the question is to make it work practically, right? Because if the rook goes to c8 and the white queen comes to e2, a6 suddenly becomes more difficult to play.
And I think she did play a6, if I'm not
Oh, she did. Yeah, she
mistaken.
did play
She did play.
a6. Indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so a6 was played with the idea to go b5. So now it's possible for white to take. So
Hmm.
black has three ways of taking, of course: knight, bishop, or a pawn. So taking with a pawn would be the worst option because we're just giving ourselves an isolated pawn, and blocking our pieces from going to c5. So the other options are either taking with the bishop or the knight. So if you take with the bishop, I will expect white to play b4. The bishop slides back, and now our bishop has the option of going here. But even here, I see the bar is kind of changing a bit, but it's
Mm-hmm.
possible, for example, if we play something like this, b5, now the bishop can slide, and then something like queen b6, and challenging this side of the board with something like, okay, maybe I'm running into bishop d4, but
Mm-hmm.
something like this, and okay, maybe a5 immediately, and challenging the queen side expansion, because now we see the bishop is placed really well,
Mm-hmm.
attacking this b4 pawn. So black has to start looking for counterplay and active counterplay here. And it's also possible, I think, to take with the knight. And after something like before, now the knight has options. Then now the knight can go to e4 and trade one pair of pieces.
In general, who do you think trades will favor in these kind of positions?
Um, that's actually a different, interesting question, right? Because this knight, like when the knight was on this, these knights are so
Mm-hmm.
symmetrical. So we're basically trading this tonight. So let's see. So if we go here, so I think if either side it manages to get the bishop pair, they'll be quite happy because the
Mm-hmm.
position is just completely open. So I think getting the bishop pair would be a huge advantage. Otherwise, it depends on the kind of trade. So for example, here already, let's say if I take, so I don't know how you take back. Let's say with the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
And I think immediately here, maybe black is running into problems because the rook comes immediately to the center, and now that the center is wide open, and like without this knight, all of a sudden this queen looks vulnerable, right? Because then when the rook goes on d1, I'm immediately attacking the queen.
Yeah. Can
So
I?
in
Do I have
this,
time for b5 and putting the queen on b6?
so here I can slide my bishop. I'm afraid to play this move. So if queen b6, so maybe like bishop d4. So now you have to go back probably.
Can I go
Or
to
then bishop.
b7 to put some
Ah,
pressure
yeah,
along the diagonal?
yeah, yeah. This actual. So yeah, maybe you're right. So maybe I shouldn't
Mm.
rush with something like this. I wonder if I want to take on d8. I don't think I want to
Mm-hmm.
trade queen zero. Or maybe actually, maybe this is also concrete and something. No, but you go b5 again. Yeah, this b5 a5 idea is actually a very nice resource for black. So let's see what would be the good way of playing here,
So
because
you're saying if
this.
we get something like basically if white isn't very accurate, there could be some ways uh, in which we could see a liquidation because if the whole queen side gets exchanged, it's very hard to see something happening, right?
Yeah, if something like b5, a5, and we see all these pawns come off, this four pawn come off, then yeah, we will enter draw territory. But
Mm.
I don't expect this to
We're
happen.
far
And
away,
in
yeah.
this, yeah, in this position, it does seem like white is ahead, right? Because I have a rook in the center. If these queens
Mm.
get trade off, I'll get another rook in the center. So already, I can start maybe activating my knight, putting a knight on e5. So it can feel very uncomfortable. I've played like this similar kind of structure. I was playing in this knockout tournament.
Mhm.
Actually, now it's white, and I lost the first game with black, so I was trying to play for a win. It was actually very impressive because my opponent found a way to like exchange all my pieces, and I was actually at some point I was amazed that she like found like she like trapped my pieces to force an exchange. And I'm like, how are you doing this? You're like going after every single one of my piece.
Which knockout tournament was that?
The American Cup.
Ah, mhm.
It was a double elimination tournament, one of the most fun tournaments I played in. So after you lose, you go to an
Mhm.
elimination bracket where you get a chance to still win a tournament. Because if you
Mhm.
win your bracket, then you challenge the winner of the winner's bracket, and then you can still come back and win a tournament. So I think that's a pretty fun format because not like you lose a game and then your tournament is
Yeah,
over.
yeah, I agree. I remember loosely following that and really liking the format. Goryachkina is really, I mean, at this point, the time difference is already quite significant to have a 25-minute lead on the clock after just 12 moves. I think Tan Zhongyi will actually be uh, quite happy here with the outcome of the opening. Would you agree?
Yeah, because she doesn't have any big problems out of the openings, and in general, Tanya plays very quickly. At least that's been my experience with
Mm.
her. And we've also seen at least 2 runs before she was playing quite quickly. And I don't think we've seen Goryachkina fall behind on the clock this much so far. So
And
she takes on
Goryachkina,
c5.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think this is
capturing.
like it's almost like it's kind of funny to call it an only move, but like I don't really see any other move for white.
Yeah. And now, well, as you mentioned, there are two moves that we could be expecting: knight takes or bishop takes. I quite like knight takes, but
You like venturing out? Well, if the knight goes back, then we can claim it doesn't actually matter, right?
yeah.
We took because it's the same position. The difference is if the knight starts getting active. So I will take. So we should mention that this does no favors for black. There's because now black has given up both files, and
Mm.
at some point maybe we can see one of the rooks going on the 7 rank. So black will take back on e4. I would maybe taking with the knight also makes sense, but somehow this exchange. I mean, okay, there's the bar that tells me, but somehow, like again, because there's no knight on d7, this exchange does seem to favor white a bit because I can see the knight going, the rook going to d1. So
Mm.
what we can do is we can compare positions because
Mhm.
if the knight goes on d7, which is kind of funny, we see that both of the knights are a bit awkward, right? Because
Mhm.
this knight cannot go to e4, this knight cannot go to e5, putting a knight on b3. It's possible, but just kind of looks a bit funny here. So both of these knights are awkward and controlled. And what we want to figure out if exchanging these knights favors white or black. And because white immediately is able to put a rook on d1 and attack this queen, I would argue that it actually favors white. So maybe black doesn't want to trade his knights.
But isn't this the line where we talked about this whole bishop takes b5, queen b6, and I wasn't actually so unhappy there.
Yeah, so I think maybe queen e2 is not a good move. You know, I do have this useful bar that evaluation bar that shows me what's a good move and what's not. So I think e2 is not correct because as white, I don't mind this queen trade. And we talked about this last time too, that sometimes we equate trading with draw, with being, making a draw, but that's not always the case,
Mhm.
especially in this position. There are still so many pieces left. So maybe like activating my knight can already start to be annoying because in these lines, for example, we mentioned queen b6, so maybe in some lifetime I can start harassing this bishop and expanding here to, for
Mhm.
example, bishop d4. You go back, maybe I can play f3, and then at some point put a pawn on e4 and start to
Mhm.
expand. So if you move your bishop, I move mine back, and I think you will like this two bishops facing the king.
I do. You know me too well already.
But
Uh,
I mean, this position all of a sudden, things get interesting. Maybe I can go e4.
mm,
Maybe I can start moving my queen to the side of the board. This bishop on d4 is actually quite annoying, just sitting
mm.
there and such a centralized square and like very solid defended by this e3 pawn.
Can black at the same time in that position just start trying to simplify on the queen side? In the meanwhile, Tanjong has captured with the knight.
Yeah. So
Like
I would
I agree with
expect.
you that some of the positions we saw, like they seem more pleasant to play for white, but I haven't seen anything yet that makes me really worried for black. On the other hand, I say that I'm not worried because Tanjongi is playing. If I were playing, maybe it'd be a different story.
Yeah, sometimes when I like prepare openings and I see these positions, I'm like, yeah, it's like when you look at a game and the game ends in a draw, and it's like two strong players playing, and you're like, yeah, of course, like, this is all logical. And then you have to handle a position, and you're like,
And,
wait a minute, all of this feels so uncomfortable. Like, why can't I find moves? Like, and why is like everything so difficult? I don't know where to
and
put my pieces. Why am I not equal? Why am I Warsaw right out of the opening again?
it's so
Yes, I do
incredible how
agree.
easy they make it look sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you see a strong player beat
Mm,
someone much lower rated than
mm,
them, and they win so easily, and you're like, wow, they just made it look so easy. All these moves were so easy. They just put pressure, and then they just
and,
beat their opponent. They're like, why can't I do this?
and okay, so Goryachkina is thinking after knight takes.
But are there any other options instead of before? What else can white do in this position? Because b5 is coming.
Mm,
So my move is to play b5 and to force your bishop to e2. So I think b4 needs to be played, so at least the bishop has the option of sliding on this diagonal. Because,
mm,
for example, something like this is already kind of traps the bishop, right?
yeah.
The bishop like actually doesn't have any squares to go to. Has to go something like no. Before I think actually might be losing a piece. No, no, can take on f6. But
We
okay, like this
actually,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
exchange
this
can only favor black.
for sure. We have a question. So in that line, we were looking at if b4, knight e4,
Hmm.
if white can go b5 herself there.
She can, but this is not a move that white wants to do. The whole idea of b4 is to limit black's pieces.
Hmm.
So this move does two things. So it blocks this bishop from going to c5 and just limits it, and also, okay, the knight went to e4, but let's say if we imagine the knight being on d7, it also stopping the knight from going to c5. So
Hmm.
while a5 is possible, it's not necessarily sorry, while b5 is possible, it's not necessarily, excuse me, a move that white wants to play. And also here, I think it might run into immediate tactical problems by hanging this pawn. But even if the pawn is not hanging, if we can imagine this, this
Mm,
actually helps black quite a bit, right? Because the rook on a8 goes from being in its initial position, and after exchanging these pawns, immediately the rook is doing something. So
mm,
black didn't even have to make a move to move the rook for the rook to become a very useful piece. So the idea of before is to control, not to expand, but to just control two of black's pieces. So white is not looking to do this. And if we think about black's plan is to like try to challenge these pawns and try to maybe somehow open this a file. So this is not something we should be doing voluntarily.
that makes sense. In the game, Tatev, surprisingly, Goryachkina has not gone for b4. She's played knight e5.
This is not a move we considered in this position exactly, but okay, this is also a very logical move. Okay, so I guess the idea is after b5, the bishop is going to go in this direction
Mhm,
and start challenging black from this side. Because if we can maybe imagine this bishop's coming off, then the knight will have this comfortable c5 square. So
mhm.
this is not something we considered. So okay, so b5, bishop e2. And what will white do here? So sorry, what will black do here? So bishop f, my arrows.
Bishop
So bishop
f3.
f3 is
Mhm.
coming, but the question is how scary is this move? Because if bishop f3, I also that maybe it gives up this d3 square in a way. So let's say let's make a move for black. What move
Well,
will
I
black
saw
play?
you hover over the rook. Maybe that makes sense. Rook b8 to just defend the bishop, right? Or
I was actually thinking if I wanna. I thought maybe
go
like
rook
moving the
c8.
rook makes sense, but maybe, and then I thought maybe something can go to e4. That's also interesting. So I was wondering how would you think about handling this position?
Yeah,
Where would you
it's
put your pieces?
as black, you mean, yeah?
Hmm. So we see that bishop f3 is coming with the ideas of knight c6. So black has to look, white has to look out for
Mhm.
this knight d3 moves, and this before move I think maybe becomes more difficult now. The knight can go to a4 perhaps, but maybe something like rook c8 is very logical. So let's say bishop goes to f3, and uh, and now we have to, now maybe we should start calculating already. For example, if you take with the queen, now do I have something like, ooh, I blundered a knight. Oh my god. I was like, what's going on? Oh yeah, you can take
Yes,
this way, and maybe this is the idea.
but still, the engine does not like this for white.
Maybe queen b6, and now our rook is coming here. Or we're missing something here. Is there
I'm
something
missing something
tactical? Knight
immediate.
e4. See, I have the benefit of just I can just make every move until I find the move that I need.
I somehow would
What
love
can
to.
be?
Can we somehow?
Knight e5. Okay, knight e5 looks like an okay move.
Yeah.
At least it does not.
At least we're
No
still in
vision.
white's camp. Okay, Tata, you know what? I think Tan Zhongyi is thinking now. This is sort of a critical moment here to see how she is going to continue. So I think this is a good time for us to take our first break of the day. An interesting game, potential to liven up, potential to get simplified. So we'll find out after a short break how this game continues. Don't go everywhere. Don't go everywhere. Don't go anywhere. And we'll be back with this coverage from Game 3 in just a few minutes.
Any move can be the last you make. War of the mind, you must adapt to change. Every mistake made, an opportunity to strike.
Check.
And when the ashes settle, only one will be crowned the victor.
Checkmate.
Victory. Oh, Jesus Christ!
Hello and welcome back to Game 3 of the semi-final of this FIDE Women's Candidates Tournament Pool B. We will jump back into the game in just a second. So Tatev and I are already here. But for now, let's first let you know about something exciting, which is coming up in just a short while later this month, and it is Q4 2022 State of Chess.com, which will be coming to you live on December 21st. We have some huge news for the chess community, and the event will be followed by a community Q&A with Danny Wrench. There will also be some very special guests joining the show to talk about the exciting announcements we're making and what these announcements mean for the future of the chess community. Don't miss this show, December 21st at 10 a.m. PST, right here on Twitch TV /chess. So looking forward to that. That's happening in just under 2 weeks. And Tatev, what's been happening in the game?
So we have some moves coming in, and basically what we're predicting has happened. So black played b5, bishop slides back, and the rook went on c8. So now again, Goryachkina is thinking. So she is actually down on the clock by quite a bit, almost by half an hour. She has 55 minutes to her opponent's hour and 22. That's quite a big time difference. And we're considering bishop f3 in this position. But unfortunately, after bishop f3, we saw the bar drop, and actually we're missing something quite basic. It's just simply trade and take on b3.
Oh my
So
goodness.
this is not possible. I have the excuse, it's very early for me.
Yeah. Are you saying I don't have an excuse?
No, I'm saying you have to come up one of your own.
I don't know. It's still early in my books, it's before noon. I blame Alessia, she's in the chat. She didn't let us know in the chat. So yeah, my excuse is Alessia.
There you go, you got distracted.
So yeah, that's
so if
not
black
possible.
has to take, if white has to take with this knight, then it just doesn't make sense, right? So basically what has happened, if we compare positions, which is a very useful way of thinking about chess, when we don't have to, you don't always think concretely, we also thinking conceptually, and whenever we calculate, it's very important to draw a conclusion to our analysis, so we're not just like analysis doesn't happen in vacuum. So if we compare positions, there's so many parentheses here, so let's see if I can click on the right one. One more move back. Yeah, so if we compare this position to the one we're just looking at, like this one, so basically what has happened, the two light square bishop have come off the board, but white has spent quite a bit of time, right? White went knight a5, bishop e2, bishop f3, and the knight from e5 slides back to f3. So actually white has wasted a lot of time just to exchange this bishop pair. And the question is it worth to spend all this move to exchange them? I would think no, because while the bishop on b7 is actually, of course, a monster on the longest diagonal, we do like to have our bishops on long diagonals, especially if those diagonals are open. But it has been very wasteful. White has wasted a lot of time. And now vacating this square on d3, where the knight potentially can land on, and giving black a lot of moves to play. Now queen will go to b6, rook to d8, actually making life quite easy for black. So I don't think this will be worth doing it. So the question is, if not that, then what? And we do have a move. The bishop goes to d4.
Okay, so we talked about the bishop on d4 a bit earlier in a different position, where that bishop was actually quite well placed there in the center of the board. My first question is, does white have any concrete threats here?
No, I don't see anything concrete for so maybe now it's asking black what black will do. So if we think about what's next for black, developed all the minor pieces, put a rook in on c8, so the next would be to move the queen and play rook d8. But none of these queen moves are possible because queen b6. Now
Mm.
They're running into this pin. Queen c7 runs into the same pin, so queen moves are not possible. So by bishop on d4, also white is kind of like closing this d file, because even if the rook goes on d8, there is no entry squares. So the question is, what should black do in this position? And so black is going to move a knight, because I
Mm.
don't think any other piece can actually move. The bishop is not going to go anywhere. This bishop, I don't think, will go to d6. So either one of the knights will go to e4, or black will challenge this knight. So it's a
Yeah, I was
question of which
wondering.
knight to challenge.
I was wondering, does it make sense at all to go backwards? Like, I was wondering if knight f to d7 makes any sense, also with the idea of potentially bringing the bishop to f6 next.
Yeah, so challenging this bishop. Yeah, I think it's a question. So it's like an interesting question that you're also thinking about before, like which pieces to exchange and who do these exchanges favor. So if we think about, so this knight on e5 is a pretty active piece, but we also want to think about which knight do we want to challenge with the knight on f6 or the knight on c5. So I guess it's a matter of which knight is misplaced or which knight can become misplaced. So for example, if this knight goes here, so we can then the question becomes, is this knight going to be happy on c5, or it's going to get kicked out, or just going to be kind of loose because it is under attack by two
Hmm.
pieces. So to my eye,
Oh,
this is a pretty nice knight.
she did play knight d7, but the other knight.
Okay. Yeah, I think this move makes a lot of sense,
Hmm.
because to my eye, this knight on f6 is very comfortable.
Hmm.
Also, don't really want to move a piece away from the king and just
Yes.
open this
Hmm.
bishop. I mean, I don't think there's anything super concrete here. It's not like white all of a sudden is going to be mating black, but it's just this feeling, that the knight on f6 is well
Hmm.
placed, and the knight on c5, although it's looks more active than the knight on f6, because it's on the fifth rank, is attacking white side of the board. I think maybe this knight will eventually get kicked and will be uncomfortable. So she challenges white's active piece on e5 and offering up an exchange. So maybe you're right. Maybe we will see a lot of exchanges in this game.
Yeah, I mean, even if we look at the bar on the side, before it was ever, I mean, it never went into it never went very high in either direction, but at least it was slightly preferring, right? That trend seems to be already reversed. I'm actually surprised that the engine it's ever, I mean, it's the tiniest of advantages. It's really almost nothing, but it's ever so slightly in White's camp. And I'm actually curious, why do you think that is?
That is in white's camp.
I mean, that it's
Um,
in Black's favor.
I
I mean,
think
it's
maybe
almost in the middle, right?
because yeah, it looks very even. Maybe it's because of this bishop on it too,
Hmm.
which maybe this bishop went in the wrong direction. Like the other position we're looking at, it's we're trying to play a little more with a little more energy and try, like
Hmm.
quickly get this queen out of the way, put a rook in the center. But instead, this bishop went to e2, which is now it's the other way around. Right now, this queen
Hmm.
is kind of stuck on d1, and I think Black's play is also quite easy. I was thinking, does Black already have any kind of threats? For example, taking on e5 and going to d5. I don't think any of this works. So if I try to pass the move, I was wondering if there's
Hmm.
some kind of big threat. But okay, so the knight goes to f3, defending.
Hmm.
So the idea was to do a double attack this and this, but yeah, actually, there's also bishop f3. But okay, at the very least, the knight goes to f3,
Hmm.
blocks this checkmate, defends this bishop. So there's nothing like that here. But I think even after this exchange, maybe even something like 94, and the position, it looks quite comfortable for black. I don't see any huge problems for black in this position. But as you said, in someone else's hands, I don't see big problems for black. In my hands, it might be different.
But it feels like
So in this,
here we're really getting closer to things to
being
being more simple,
mhm.
let's say. Obviously, the more pieces that get off the board, the simpler things are. Yeah, you just pointed out this A3 pawn in certain lines. Need to watch out for that. In the game, we saw an exchange on C8.
Yeah, and another thing to mention is knight cd7 is actually a tempo move compared to moving this knight because the pawn is hanging. So actually, this really forces white's hand, because you have to find a way to somehow defend this knight,
Mhm.
this pawn. So takes, queen takes, another logical move, and here another comfortable square, potential square for this queen is a8, which might look funny because we're putting the queen in the corner, but because this diagonal is wide open, this is actually pretty annoying for white because white has to start thinking about defending this g2 pawn, and which will also allow the rook to join the game either by going to c8 or d8. So already to me, black's position looks very comfortable, and she has a huge edge on the clock still. So now she actually is ahead by 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's quite a substantial lead. I thought it was interesting, when I asked you about this turn in tide, and you talked about the bishop on e2, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that this slight switch, the slide, the slight change in the evaluation started when she didn't play b4? When Goryachkina went
Yeah.
knight e5?
Um, Oh, in this position, 95. Yeah, I think so. I think the pieces went maybe on the wrong square. I did like this move before. Maybe she just
Mm.
thought 94 and maybe she just. Uh, but like, I don't see much of a difference between this 94 and 94 in another position. But I do like this before move because it just gives my white more options. The
Mhm.
bishop can stay on this diagonal, like the queen, because in the other line with sub bishop goes to e2, the queen doesn't have a move. They're fighting for the same square, but at least now before, and just gives white so many more options. Whereas what we see in the game,
It's
black's
just
moves become very quick, very easy, and seems like there's no problems for black there.
yeah, and the white position is just a bit more passive. So Goryachkina is still thinking after the trade on c8. And she has to worry. She has to do something about the pawn on a3. Does she still want to play b4 now, or if we play b4, do we give up some? I never know if I can play b4 if I'm giving up control over c4. Is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, right? Because these pawn moves are so permanent,
Mm,
and we don't want to overextend. Okay, so let's actually think about this. So if before, I would think maybe something like take, and rook d8, and start to annoy white a little bit. I know that the bishop can always go to d4, but I'm wondering if there might be some kind of a5 moves in the future, e5 moves in the future, some kind of tactics on this d file. We can also, instead of exchanging, we can think about something like queen a8. So here I'm not so fearful of the pawn ever going to a5 because the b5 pawn is hanging. If we compare it to the position we're looking
mhm.
at when the bishop on this diagonal, we were kind of afraid of this a5 move. But here this b5 pawn will always hang, so we're not so afraid of playing this. Okay, so in the game, she actually took on d7. So we're really simplifying. So there's two ways for black to take, either queen or the knight. I think um, queen takes looks very natural, and she plays it quickly. It's just so nice for black because her moves are just so natural.
Yeah.
All her moves are so natural and so easy, so she can just play them quickly. And it's not like she has this major crossroads where she has to think about what to do.
The fact that Goryachkina has now sort of started trading, do you think it's kind of an admission that things went a bit wrong and that she's, looking for potential ways to bail out, or what do you think?
No, I don't think she's looking to bail out. I don't think she minds playing very simple positions where she can play them for a very long time. This is something very good players. This is something I feel like how 2600 players or like this 25, 50 plus players beat like 2,300 players. Get a simple position. Their moves are very easy to make. They're not really doing anything. They're just kind of shuffling around. And then, like a lower rated player, always feels like they have to do something. So then they start making one weakness here. Maybe it doesn't make a huge difference, but another weakness there. And then all of a sudden the position becomes worse. But I think, of course, Tenjungi will handle this much better. But I do think this is something higher rated players are very good at. So I think she just doesn't mind playing this kind of positions. Maybe she has some flashbacks to game one where she was, I think trying to play a similar way, but things didn't go her way.
Yeah, because I think what you're saying, I mean, I completely understand when white has a small edge, but yeah, I mean, if I look at this position, I would probably pick black, just because, I don't know, I feel the bishops are a little bit more active, and the rook will easily now come to c8 or d8. So, I don't know. I don't know, how do you feel? Which side would you rather play?
I mean, there seems to be a lot of harmony in black's position, right? So bishop on b7, bishop on e7, the queen on d7. I think what white will play something like queen a1, try to put some pressure on this diagonal, make it so this knight cannot move easily, move a rook in the center. But at the same time, this makes this c-file look a bit weaker. For example, if the rook goes to c8, maybe the rook can go to c2. But I don't really see a lot of danger in white's position. Or, I mean, I think black's position maybe like more harmony, maybe a little simpler to play. But I don't think there's a huge danger for either side in this position.
Apart from queen a1, what are some other options for white to defend the pawn?
Well, because these exchanges have happened, I think that's why I was considering queen a1, because queen a1 does two things at the same time. Defends the pawn and tries to try to make a file for the rook to join the game. So another option would be b4, which I don't think there is anything wrong with this move. Maybe like we can dream one day of our knight going to c5, or like in the first game when there was this huge dream of knight going to c5, but it never made it.
Actually, Tata, we had a question about the previous if after queen a1, if the pawn sacrifice e5
okay,
can be dangerous.
So
actually, it's
our
not even
knight
a
is
pawn.
hanging.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is quite concrete, so I guess I have to slide back. And I don't know how I feel about the pawn going to e5, because it might become a big target.
Yeah,
so immediately we cannot take. Let's show why not, because this knight is hanging and the queen, this bishop is hanging, queen cannot be trapped. So the bishop goes to c3. And now the idea is to play rook d1 and go after this pawn. So I'm not sure, like e5 is quite concrete. Was the idea to bring the queen around, or maybe just to play rook c8 and rook c8 with the idea of hanging a3? So this is very concrete. So I think maybe this is something that bothered, because she decided to play before.
I have a voice in my ear, Tatef, and it's telling me some crazy engine lines. So let's just go back 1 second. So after queen a1, e5, bishop c3. Apparently there are some crazy computer lines after knight e5 and then sacking the knight on e3.
So what does...
After bishop takes, yeah. So let me... How does this work?
Then knight takes on e3, and then d2 hangs. There's too many things hanging here.
Yeah, this is... Damn the voice in my ear. So g7.
So let's see. So this is hanging. I was actually wondering if I take on g7, what's going to happen to the evaluation bar. But
I've now opened the engine as well. Bishop g7 is the only to not be worse.
Okay. And
Knight.
what's the line? Knight f1.
Oh wow, there's even rook c8 here, which is crazy. There's rook c8 and knight f1. The engine is undecided, but both of them lead to even to even position.
Looks very even to me.
Okay, I mean these lines are just crazy.
Yeah, we're talking about this with Alessia when we're doing commentary, and what does it mean when the engine says 0.00? So there's different kind of 0.00, right? Like this one and this one. I don't even know how to find this. And this one. So there's a
Yeah.
big difference between the
Yeah.
0.00 that the engine offers in this position. Because one of them you play a wrong move, you probably resign. The other one, you play a wrong move, okay, your position might be slightly worse. And then your opponent probably won't be able to press too much because the difference is like 0.3 or something.
Mm.
And they're pretty safe. So this is the kind of 0.00 that a lot of players, especially when I see like super strong players play, and then people in the comments are like, "Oh, how can they lose this position? The engine says equal." And you're like, "Okay,"
Yeah.
but every single piece on the board is hanging.
But
It's
you know,
very easy to lose this position.
I completely agree with you, and it makes me wonder if this could be one of the reasons why Goryachkina didn't play Queen A4. Like, did she see that E5, that there might be some possibilities like this, and that she was like, I only have 45 minutes on the clock, I'm down half an hour. This is not something, this craziness is not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that she simply saw Queen A1, E5, Knight
Yeah.
D5, and she was like, "Okay, I don't need this in my life. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
play something simple." Because in this lines over the board, you cannot calculate them to completion because there's just too many options. It's too messy, and it's not that you can calculate them to completion. You can evaluate them properly a lot of the
Mm.
times. So maybe you can calculate lines, but you just do not know, don't understand. It just looks too messy. And she's
Oh.
not a very concrete player. She doesn't play this kind of crazy position. She likes her structures. Like she
Mm.
takes some time. She figures out where to put her pieces structurally. Where um, she doesn't really do crazy things like this. Like I can see myself, with 45 minutes on the clock sitting there calculating and playing something very not practical. But she's a very
Mm.
practical player. She's a very classical player. So before I think is more in her style. And we see 94 offering another exchange of pieces. And the idea is now to take on d2. Now maybe e5 is a
Yeah.
possibility. So white is at crossroads, so white can either trade or move the knight. So I think it will become the question of which way the knight might want to go. So it's possible the knight will actually go to b3 with the idea of chasing this knight away and placing a knight on c5.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, can black somehow... You know me, Tat. If I'm looking, can I bring the bishop to d6? Earlier you had these two white bishops pointing at the black king, and I like that. Now I wonder, can I do the same? Probably, yeah, probably not here. Unfortunately, I'm gonna run into some problems on the d file, I guess. I don't know if bishop or f3
Yeah,
is...
I think f3, knight f6, and this is, I think, tactically already loses because after take, knight c5, and bishop becomes a bit uncomfortable here
Mhm.
because your
Yeah.
queen will go somewhere. I will take, and your queen here is already overworked, defending too many
Mhm.
bishops. So you cannot take. I will take on d6, and this check doesn't scare me because after king h1, I'm
Mhm.
still attacking this bishop, and you cannot capture back.
Yeah, so this does
So,
not work.
so black cannot get too ambitious. So actually, yeah, f3 knight c5 is an idea that's in the air. So black has to think about ways to deal with this. So let's see what we can do. So let's make like a normal rook
Mhm.
move.
I was just
So
wondering actually about this as well. D8, C8, both squares look quite tempting.
let's see. So if I go to c8, and let's say you go f3, I was wondering if I have this move.
Mhm.
Because this starts to get a bit scary, right? Because here And now the spec rank feels a bit
But
suspicious.
what's happening after rook d7 here? You just take on
Rook d7. So let's say take.
draw.
And
Oh no, draw.
I don't know. There's a lot of pawns hanging for black.
Maybe
for
white had to
like
take the
bishop
other
to
bishop.
f8.
Oh,
Ah, you want to take this one? Ah, yeah. Okay, this is more annoying for me because you have a
yeah.
double threat here. So I have to go here.
Mhm.
Okay. And what? Why is it?
But can we keep harassing? Yeah, that bishop somehow. Rook c7.
So go back. You can pin me. I go here.
And that,
But how are we not losing all these pawns? What am I
yeah, I
missing
was
here?
wondering if a4 at some point, but I can't make it work.
Oh, you want to do this
Yeah,
and
but
then take?
yeah, but I don't see a follow-up here.
Yeah, this is
No, this is
dangerous.
not it.
No. So what is... Ah, I found something clever. So rook a7, go here,
And now rook
and
a8. That
now
is
we have a nice tactic.
that is very nice. By the way, Tatev, in the game, we won't be seeing any of that because Goryachkina has decided to exchange on e4.
And play queen a1, attacking this pawn. So in this position, I wanted to immediately. I was like, can I defend the pawn in a more active way with something like queen d5? With the idea being after bishop g7, maybe I have something like take queen g2 or something like queen g5. But this move will immediately run into f3. Okay, so how to defend this pawn? I would think f6 is possible.
Yeah, f6, c5 looks, and f6 is already on the board. I mean, I'm just amazed. Like 10 has 1 hour 17 on the clock. That's just incredible, no?
I wanted to actually check to see if she has more time than she started with.
Close
No,
enough.
but her moves are just so easy, right? Like she hasn't had a chance to make like any critical decision game yet. Like all her moves, like if we look through the opening. Okay, so opening happens. She like this b6 once she takes and plays b6 is kind of a committal thing to take and play b6. But then all of a sudden her moves become so natural. Like all the pieces go to their designated squares, and then she's like, okay, now I have to go c5. a6, maybe this is the only decision at this point if she wants to play rook c8 or a6 there, or a6. But now all these moves, like all the pieces are going to the squares they belong to. Okay, and then exchanges happen, and exchanges with our easy. Your opponent captures, you have to capture back. That's an easy move. So all of this is happening very quickly, and very easy decisions for her.
And we've had another question. So she played f6 very quickly. What about g6? Was that also an option, do you think?
Where are we? g6. So because this bishop is diagonal, so maybe tactically, concretely, we can get away with this, but it's not really something we want to do because why? Like this bishop is here, the queen is here on the diagonal. Like, why weaken our diagonal? This is kind of like asking your opponent. It's like trying to kind of like
Asking
annoy
for
them.
trouble.
Like, okay. No, but it's kind of also like tempting them to do something. Like, okay, you attack me, you have this diagonal. I'm giving you a diagonal. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So immediately, I don't see a problem because, like, if you go bishop h8, you try to mate me. This bishop is trapped. So this bishop actually gets trapped. So immediately, I don't see a problem with this move. But long term, it's a weakening move. So even if we don't see a problem right now, we might see a problem down the road. So it's really this kind of move. It's really unnecessary, and not a move if we want to play unless we absolutely have to. So something like f6 is a more natural move. There's two pieces on this So if we think about white's bishops, so this bishop is controlled by this pawn chain, so it makes sense to create this pawn chain to control this bishop.
I agree with you. I think f6 just, even if there's no concrete problems with g6, it just feels much more natural to close the diagonal rather than give it to white. We saw another couple of moves. Rook d1 was played now by Goryachkina. Looking at the queen on d7, again, a fast and natural move. Queen b7, hitting the pawn on g2, and white does the same, f3.
So I expect the bishop to go here, and the position is just so symmetrical. Look at this. If white just plays queen b2 and black goes rook d8, it's like 100% symmetrical position.
Okay, Tata. I actually, today, I even failed to see. The other day we finished 4 hours from now. I think 4 more hours from this point out. Here, again, I'm really struggling to see how either side can press if the opponent doesn't give them, anything to work with.
So after f3, she's thinking. So maybe she's going on this diagonal. But I don't see a reason for doing this. Because here, I don't think e4 is anything scary. Because all of a sudden this bishop is kind of funny to me. Do I want to do this? Possibly even. But I don't think e4 is anything to worry about too much. But she's taking her time a bit. Maybe there are more options here for black than we think. But I think black is actually quite happy with the outcome of the opening. She is up 35 minutes. We are on move 23. So Goryachkina has 40 minutes for 17 moves, which sounds maybe not a lot, but actually the position is quite simple, so I think she can make those moves very quickly. But Tan Zhongyi has spent very little energy playing this game. She played the opening, something she had prepared, and the rest of the moves were played quite quickly. So she spent 15 minutes plus the increment that she got. So after 23 moves, that's 11 and a half minutes to think about that. Which so she did, like, they did get 30 seconds after each move, so 23 minutes, that's 11 and a half minutes. So she also spent that, but so far she spent less than 30 minutes on this game, and the position has simplified so much, and so much has already happened. So I think she should be very happy about this kind of outcome. You're coming back from a day off and you make an easy draw with the black pieces, and the next day, the final game, you have the white pieces. I think this is a lot for black to be happy about.
I completely agree with your assessment. I think Tan today couldn't have hoped for anything more. Okay, you can always hope for more. You can always hope white is going to blunder something somewhere and make you a nice present, but that's very unlikely. So I think from the likely scenarios, this was her best scenario. In this position, I really think it's just completely even. The players cannot, let's remind our viewers, the players cannot offer a draw before move 40. But if they could, I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw a draw for here. I also wouldn't be surprised. Right now, I don't see any repetition somewhere, but we could imagine the rooks coming off. I think if the heavy pieces come off, if the rook and the queens come off, then I think we'll actually see quite a fast draw here.
Yeah, the way we see this kind of games end, we will see some kind of like the players, they kind of like have a like mutual agreement, like unspoken agreement that this is going to be a draw. So then they just start repeating moves, and then we see some kind of funny repetitions, like the bishop goes back and forth, and you're like, okay, it's not necessary to make these moves, but they understand, okay, this is going to be a draw. We don't want to sit here and play another 20 moves, so let's just repeat. Especially in tournaments where there is no draw offers.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you kind of see the players looking at each other, like, and then the question is, will this game end in a draw before the sun rises where Tatev is. Or not? When does the sun
Well,
rise?
it's 5:30 and because of the time change. I don't know if you guys do the time change that we do, that
We
1
do
hour
also.
fallback. And
Yeah.
okay, I think sun rises at like 8 o'clock.
And it's now what,
Some
6:30?
No, it's 5:30.
Oh no, then I think there is no like the game will 100% end before. I thought the sun would rise
100%.
100%. Mark my words.
So like I'm actually deciding how much coffee I need to drink because I need caffeine to keep going. But I'm like, okay, if this is gonna end early, I don't want to have too much coffee so I can go back to sleep. So
I
it's
would
also a
almost
big decision for me.
no, I would almost be inclined to say it will end in the next hour, actually.
The next hour, okay.
What do you
Actually, if
think?
that happens, it'd be nice. Then I can sleep for a few hours and then have the rest of my day ahead of me.
Yeah. Okay, I mean it depends, but it's just looking. It's not so much, it's not like wishful thinking on my end. It's just looking at the position and thinking, I really don't see what either player wants to try.
Okay, so let's try to make some moves. Let's see how we can mishandle this position.
Yeah, I mean, if we can look at this position later, we can also maybe go back to that line with knight d3 and have some fun there. But I'm with you. Let's quickly see.
So let's see White's options. So I think, I mean, the way we can kind of wrap this up is something like this, right? So here, queen goes to c3. There is no reason not to trade queens. And then we make some kind of a repetition at some point. I think once we reach this position, the game will quickly end in a draw. I don't think either side will be trying for much here. But I mean, actually, it's when you said there's 10 couldn't have hoped for more. But she was out of the 3 games. She was pressing with the black pieces in the first game, so maybe she could have hoped for more.
Yeah, but it was with some help from, Alexandra gave her some, because she was pressing, but she was also, before she was pressing, I feel like here she was under less pressure actually out of the opening than in game 1, even if later she got more chances. But I think just from the purely opening point of view, she was under, is my impression at least, that she was under much less pressure today than game 1.
Yeah, she didn't have to solve any problems in this game. Because like all her moves were easy, natural, and she played very quickly. She didn't have any major decisions. There were like no big crossroads. I don't think she's even at the board right now. Goryachkina is thinking. She's probably, I don't know, she's deciding maybe if she wants to go something like e4. But like even if she plays e4, I think even if I, maybe here I can run into things. So maybe actually e4 is a move to consider, because like here, so this actually changes the character of the position. So this is actually quite a decision.
This
So
must
let's
be what
consider
she's
this e4 move.
considering.
Yeah, because otherwise, if she plays a natural move, something like queen b2, the rook will go to c8, because there's actually squares to enter here, unlike the d file. And now if e4, bishop c4, we're quite happy about this as black, because we can take back with the rook. So I think if she goes something like queen b2, then she has to be ready to basically consolidate and make a draw. But her other option is to play e4, and this will maybe change the flow of the game a lot more. So let's see. So here, e4. So if bishop c4, what did we say? Take, right? Yeah, so this is already a pretty big change in the structure. So let's see. So either queen c3 or rook c1, rook goes to c8. So we let our opponent create a pass pawn and put a rook behind it, all the things we learned we're not supposed to do. But at the same time, this pawn is quite weak. For example, now if we imagine like its majors coming off, we can see how this pawn might just fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, this is something that's very hard to imagine, because now it's actually hard to imagine all these pieces would get traded off.
I'm even wondering if, the fact that white's pawn structure now with this f3, e4, like I'm thinking, okay, at some point I'll probably play e5 and see if I can get in. If the bishop drops back along the long diagonal, then I'm already thinking I can go queen b6, try and get in with the queen. So there's also some active possibilities for black here.
So, for example, if I make some move, like if the bishop... Oh, you want the bishop to go the other
Yeah,
way.
I wanted, if...
Okay, let's
when
say
you
if I
picked queen
voluntarily...
c3, I was like, she found the only move.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I've mixed up my diagonals. So if the bishop goes back, if you check, then maybe your queen can start getting quite active here. So you want to do something like this. Yeah, then maybe I actually already have to start defending against these checks.
And I
So
think
she's
as
still
black
thinking.
here, I would be tempted to keep the queens on, maybe. But anyway, Tatev, Goryachkina is still thinking in the current position. Most likely she is debating whether she wants to go e4 or not. So could be that this is going to be a slightly longer thing on her end, since this is a critical decision, and that means that it is a good time for us to go on a break, as we see that Goryachkina's clock is ticking down towards just 30 minutes. So we'll see you on the other end of this. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to our coverage of Game 3 of the semi-final Pool B of the women's candidates. My name is still Fiona Steil-Anthony. I'm here with Women Grandmaster Tatef Abrahamian. We are your hosts for this Game 3. And we saw a pair of rooks just come off in the game. We're going to go back to that in just a second. But first of all, the holiday season is upon us. So, is there a chess player in your life who you would love, who would love a premium membership to chess.com? Do you have a holiday party tonight but totally forgot to buy a present? This holiday season, share the beauty of chess with your loved ones. Purchase a premium membership now and ship it off to its recipient anytime, whether that's tonight, next week, or next month. Don't get into a last minute time scramble for this year's greatest gift. Drop exclam gift in the chat for all the details. So make sure you too share the gift of chess. And Tataf in the game, as I mentioned, a rook. But the rooks have come off and e4 is on the board. So let's just rewind a couple of moves.
Yeah, so when we left off, we were in this position and we're thinking if Goryachkina is going to play e4 or she is going to put a rook on c1 or queen b2, basically ready to exchange a pair of rooks. So she played rook c1 after a long thing. Rook c8 played pretty quickly, almost immediately. I don't think there is anything else for black. So we see the rooks come off and now e4. And now black can decide whether she wants to put a bishop on c4 or whether she wants to slide back on the diagonal and kind of keep the pair of bishops on the board and not really make any kind of structural changes. Because after bishop c4, I'm assuming white is not going to take on c4 and allow this queen into the game. Or actually, maybe she doesn't mind doing this and playing queen c3. But I would think she would play queen c3 immediately and try to take on c4 in this position. And we were looking at this position, this version of this, if I can find this in my arrows. I cannot. There's so many parentheses here. Oh yeah, we're looking here, right? We're looking at this position with the rooks on the board, but now where we are in the game, it's possible we'll get the same position without the rooks on the board.
I don't know about you. For me, at first sight, like let's say this was a blitz game, I was playing black, I think I would just go bishop e7. Say, okay, I'll keep control over the c file with my queen. Oh, this is a square actually I hadn't even considered because I just felt like I didn't really want to go to c4, but b3 is actually a more active choice maybe.
I think the point is if queen b2, just queen c2 and forcing a trade of queens. And okay, probably should take. And actually, is the bishop gonna get stranded here? I don't think so, because bishop can always go on a4. So I think maybe black is just very happy to call this a day and exchange the pieces. And perhaps, yeah, I think we will see some kind of an endgame. Because here, black already wants to play queen c2 and ask this bishop where it's going. So we will either see queen b2 or queen c3 and some kind of an exchange of queens. So the queens will either get traded on c3, or as we mentioned, the queens will get traded on c2.
Yeah, also, I mean, the bishop, I guess, can always go back to b3, play e5, and just...
And slide back. Yeah, I don't think this kind of things really helps. I was actually, for a second, I was thinking if the king is in the square, and I was like, yes. So we know how to draw a square. Yeah, so this is actually...
Yeah.
So here the c5 pawn is actually
it's easy to get panicked. I mean, for us, again, it's easier because we have the bar that's not, shooting up. But in a game, it's, especially a blitz game or fast time control game, it's easy to suddenly get panicked.
Yeah, and without the queens and the rooks, this is actually a weakness. So the king will just come closer and potentially just simply take this pawn. So white cannot get very adventurous here. And the situation on the clock is she has Goryachkina has 25 minutes. We are currently on move 26, so 14 moves to go. Of course, if she plays something like Queen c3 and forces an exchange of bishops, then she can have like a couple of minutes on the clock. She'll make time control. There is no danger in the position. But Tan Zhongyi has spent very little time. She spent less than half an hour if we count the increment that she has spent. So so far, this has been a really easy game for her.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't see really what Alexandra wants to do if she doesn't trade queens, because okay, Black's queen is looking to come into c2, so I don't know, maybe you can. I mean, I was thinking of bishop d3, but yeah, queen b2 has just been played. And even from Alexandra's face. Hmm?
And I expect to see a very quick queen c2 immediately, not even spending a second, just like pre-moving queen c2.
Yeah, I think Tan Zhongyi is like, okay, I'm ready to go home and, prepare for the final classical game where she will have the white pieces. Also, Alexandra's, I mean, I said the other day, I find it sometimes hard to read Alexandra's body language. But here, I mean, to me, she looks like she also, she doesn't look like, oh, let me find a way to keep the pieces on and try for a long time. I think we are headed for the players finding a way here, maybe even to either quickly head to move 40, which is maybe the most likely, or just find a repetition.
Yeah, I think like for her to try to find ways to keep the game going, there must be something in the position that offers this, right? But here, there's just the position is very dry. So this will be pretty good result for Tan Zhongyi, and she'll have the white pieces tomorrow. So what do you think is most likely? Some kind of a result tomorrow or playoffs?
I think playoffs at this stage. I think 4 matches, and we see the queens just come off there. Alexandra Goryachkina doesn't look too happy, and I guess she's not happy. I mean, she did not really get anything today with the white pieces. So I think, yeah, that Tan Zhongyi, of course, will try to get something. She'll try to get a risk-free small advantage that she can press, but I think the probabilities of a playoff are very, very high at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the playoff is a very likely outcome. And who do you think would be a favorite in a playoff?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I feel that first of all, I don't know the players. I don't know their rapid. I don't know their rapid ratings. I don't know I don't know how well they usually do in faster time controls. But I think I commented on one women's beaches championship match of Tan Zhongyi, if I'm not mistaken, and I remember going into that, and she was playing someone young and quite up and coming and strong, but I was so impressed, and I'd have to double check it. Maybe our producer will remember, because he was actually producing and he had predicted a landslide win for the opponent. But Tan Zhongyi took the match very easily. So I think she must be an underdog on paper, but not to be underestimated. I guess it's going to be very close. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I mean, of course, the easiest is always pick the rating favorite, right? And we do see a significant rating difference, almost 70 points. That's actually quite a lot, because Goryachkina is very close to 2,600, whereas Tan Zhongyi is closer to 2520 almost. So we do see a big rating difference, but I think Tan Zhongyi is actually quite strong in faster time controls. Naturally, she just plays fast, so she just likes to play very quickly. I think she is medaled. She has a medal from this World Rapid and World Blitz
Mhm.
Championships. I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to think back to this tournament. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I do think she's done well in this tournament. Uh, I don't know how much experience. I mean, there are not that many Rapid and Blitz tournaments, especially in the US. Like in Europe, I think in Asia there are more. There are all these team tournaments and there's like Rapid games. Like in the US, we don't have so many. Uh, but I think actually Tang Gi, I think she can do really well in this faster time format. I think she plays quite strong in with less time on the clock.
And our producer Beck has confirmed my what I thought, that it was indeed Tan Zhongyi whose match I was commentating on. She was playing against Shuvalova, and she beat her 17-10 in an incredibly convincing and impressive display. So yeah, I think we'll be very, very, very close.
Yeah, I mean, Shuvalova is one of the up and coming players. Like Russia plays, I think she's in top 10. I think she's also over 2,500. She's a
Mm.
quite strong player, and yes, that's a that's a pretty big margin to win by. But okay, like this online games, I don't want to take anything away from anyone, but this online chess is just so different from over the board
Of
chess,
course.
because we do have some players who just really thrive in online games, and we have some players who really struggle with this online games. Like for me, it's very difficult to play online for a very long time. At some point, I just stop seeing things,
Mm.
and I just can't see the board anymore. But some players, like okay, Nihal Sarin, he's just so strong when he plays online.
Nihal Sarin, who will be playing Dingley Ren later today, I believe, in just a few hours. By the way, I opened Tan Zhongyi's Wikipedia page to see if I could find anything about any medals. I don't see, that doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I see, for example, in 2014, she won the Asian Women's Blitz Championship, and these Asian championships in general are very strong. So, yeah, just more proof that she, is incredibly. Also, I mean, let's not forget, this is something I think we haven't talked about even once. But she is a former women's world champion, and she won that in the World Cup. And she was playing against Anna Musichuk in the final. That was in 2017. The classical games ended 2-2 with one win each. And then in the rapid tiebreak, Tan won the two-game tiebreak by drawing the first game with black and then winning with white. So yeah, she has a great record. A great track record, it would seem, in the faster time controls.
Yeah, she has a lot of experience with this kind of format, and the difference is by the time you get to the finals in the World Cup, you're completely exhausted. The
Mhm.
month of playing chess,
Mhm.
and this one hasn't been that long. It's been only a few weeks. So, but yeah, experience plays a huge difference. Like being familiar with this kind of format and having showing good nerves in the rapid. And we do see some moves coming in. So we see this queens being exchanged. White plays e5, black ignores it. King f7, king f2, and now f5 was played. And yeah, we're slowly reaching move 40.
Mhm.
Black is not spending a whole lot of time. She still has over an hour on her clock, hour 13 minutes. So I think there was another move that was played. I see it on the screen, but I don't see it. No, I think it was
No.
f5 that was played. So now again, it's Alexandra's move. I'm assuming she will continue bringing her king. I mean, black can start pushing the spawns here. I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. There's just not that much life left in the position.
Mhm.
There's not a whole lot of insights to offer
Yeah.
here. It looks like they're going to reach move 40 and just make a draw.
Well, the last point of intrigue, I saw a few people in the chat earlier were wondering if Tan was going to manage to be a full hour up on the clock at some point. So maybe that's the last point of intrigue that remains in this game. Tatev, let me ask you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3 hours from now. If I am mistaken, I'm sure our producer or mod in the chat will correct me. 3 hours from now, Nihal Sarin will be taking on Dingley Ren in the Speed Championships 2 hours from now. So 2 hours from now, that match is starting. What are your thoughts, your expectations for that?
Yeah, I watched his some of his match, Nihal's match versus Anish Giri. That was so wild. It went all the way to the
I
playoffs,
also watched that.
and so Nihal won the first game, and in the second game, Anish mouse slipped, and he meant to capture a piece back. Instead, he didn't. He mouse slipped the pawn move forward. Luckily for him, he still managed to get the piece back, but he was down a couple of pawns. But I think the nerves. I think Nihal got too nervous, and then all kinds of crazy things happened. Anish had a lot of chances. Game ends in a draw. I think like Nihal does really, really well in this kind of format. He reached the finals in the Global Chess Championships. It was all online. I think in this Chess 24 tournaments, he's also done really well. Prague has also done really well. Maybe I'm thinking of Prague, who beat Magnus.
I think it was
but
Prague, yeah, who was playing more of these Chess 24 tour events. But yeah, both of them have done incredibly well in these online.
I want to say Nihal played recently something, but yeah, I mean, especially on chess.com, right? Nihal has done really well.
Nihal won the Tata Steel India Rapid event.
That's very impressive.
Yeah,
and
which was just a week ago.
So I don't think the time difference between China and India is huge. So this actually works out really well for them, because I know sometimes you have players with just huge time difference, and the show has to happen at some reasonable hours. Sometimes one of the players really suffers. So I think this is actually very comfortable for both of them. I think Nihal, I mean, Dingleren is very, very strong, but I don't know. I think Nihal is like the slight favorite.
Yeah, I've always had a soft spot, I have to say, for Nihal, because he's one of the younger. I remember seeing him, interviewing him when he was only 12, and he was always just so nice and such a lovely kid, and seeing his mom there. And I don't know, I've always been a huge Nihal fan, so I feel like I'm not completely objective. But I agree with you. I think he's just been such a monster in these online fast time control events. I feel Dingley Ren is always a bit more of a dark horse, especially in this online format where you're not too sure what to expect. So, but I think it'll be a very very interesting match. I mean, this Nihal against Anish match you were referring to, I was on the edge of my seat. I mean, it was so intense. So I look forward. I enjoy being here and doing the commentary with you, but I also enjoy, just sitting back on the couch and watching someone else do the commentary. So from a fan perspective, very. It's going to be a good afternoon with the Football World Cup, Nihal against Ding. It's going to be
you have a full schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
I played Nihal in one of the Reykjavik Opens. I don't remember which one, 2018, 2017. I think that's the one where he got a norm or something. And I think you presented him with an award, if I'm thinking the right one.
Could be. I don't think I was there at the closing. I don't think I was doing any award presenting, unless I'm misremembering. But it's so crazy, to think that he wasn't even a GM.
Yeah, it's like a little kid.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, from my point of view, he's still a little kid. But he was like really little back then. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Against Anish, I also thought Nihal is a favorite.
How was the game? Your game against Nihal?
I lost. It was some kind of a Nimzo, I think, or Queen's Indian. It was like kind of an equal position, and I remember he was like kind of nervous. He was pacing around because I think he was chasing a norm in that tournament. This was like a long time ago, 2018, I want to say.
Yeah, and I think his progress. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Magnus I think Magnus was actually also commentating on Chess24 on this match between Nihal and Anish, and I think the age-old question came up of, out of the Indian players, there's so many. There's Gukesh, there's Arjun, there's Nihal, there's Prag. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw somewhere online that Magnus picked Nihal out of the lot, at least for like in the near future in classical chess, that he picked Nihal. And again, correct me if someone saw what I saw and I saw wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what Magnus said.
I'm not sure. I know Fabiano said Erigassi. He said he thinks it's the most consistent and the strongest. Is Erigassi is the one he's most impressed with. But yeah, I mean, there's
It's
quite a
hard
few
to
to
pick
choose from.
favorites. They're all so good.
Yeah, they're all very strong, and there's how many? So it's Erigassi, Prague, Nihal Sarin, Gukesh. So that was the Olympic team, right? Or Erigassi was on the other team? I think one of them was on the other
Erigassi
team.
was on the A team.
Okay, that was the mistake. That's like already a strong Olympic team in its own right.
No, it's
And I think
incredible. Yeah.
another issue with Dingleren and Nihal Sarin is Dingleren, he has played in this Magnus Tour events, but the problem for him was always it was like some crazy hour in China. So I think he just always suffered. And I mean, I think he's done okay in some events, but I think he just at some point he was just collapsed because at some point I think it started at 1, so I think by the time it got to later hours, like later rounds, he would just collapse. So he's played in some events, but I don't think he has as much experience as Nihal in this kind of tournaments. And this younger generation, they just play so much online that I think they just have such I don't want to say advantage, but they just have so much practice and they just have so much experience.
Exactly. Shy Dog, thank you for the 13 ones. Good to see you here. I also see Hexagons in the chat is saying, don't sleep on Vidit. Of course, we're not sleeping on Vidit, but I just think it's not the same generation. I think the 4 players we're talking about are all substantially younger than Vidit, which is even hard to imagine because I remember a few years ago, Vidit was this young prodigy, and suddenly, these youngsters are coming up so fast. So absolutely, we're not sleeping on Vidit. It's just, I think, different generations. Really.
Yeah, the definition of young in chess is very different from a definition of young in the real world. Because in chess, you're like it's over 20, you're like a completely different generation. There's a new one coming. I just checked actually. Vidit is 28, so he's almost 30, and these guys are all 18 and under. So there's actually a very huge age difference between them. It's actually generational change. And actually, we do have some moves in this game. So we left off after King F7.
Also, just had 1 minute to go until we see the 1 hour clock difference. Under a minute.
Is it
now.
her move?
Huh?
The anticipation is building up.
I know. Okay, so let's
see the
catch
kings
up.
coming in. Bishop e4, and I think here is the moment where White had an opportunity to make a mistake, because I think this can become problematic very quickly because the king goes to d5 and White's king does.
1 second, we need to wait a second because we're on full screen. We're waiting. The 15-second countdown is on to the 1 hour clock difference. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. 1 hour clock difference. We made it, chat. We did it. Okay, now
it's so unpleasant. When your opponent is just playing so fast, it just always annoys me.
Tata, we're back. The board is back, so we can continue the analysis.
No, I mean, what I was just saying is, in this position, when the bishop went on e4, attacking this pawn, so there was a slight chance for White to blunder, because the king, black king has, oops, king doesn't move like that. has a way to activate, whereas the white king doesn't have any entry squares. Of course, this wasn't played. G4 was played. King goes to D7. And I think there was another move that was played, G5. Yeah, I think we're just like closing the position. The king can go to D5, but the king will never be able to go to C4. The bishop will stay on this diagonal. Of course, the king will never go to E4 because there's a king on E3. So I think we are getting very close to draw on move 41.
Yeah. I think really this last move was the final indicator, closing the position there on the king side, which means that there's basically no pawn breaks left in the position. King c6 was played, and I think, as you were saying, most likely Goryachkina will just wait with the light squared bishop.
Yeah, I think can make a very professional draw, right? Bishop f1, bishop f8. Okay, the king will go to d5, and white just go wait back and forth. Maybe she can go like king d2, king d5, king d3. Okay, well, they'll just make some moves, and I think draw on move 41.
Yes, she made bishop
likely.
d1. So yeah, now, well, the 1 hour clock time intrigue is out of the way. The next intrigue is, will we see a draw by repetition before move 40? Or will we get to move 40 and see a handshake? There, that's the last intrigue I can think of here. Yeah, maybe
So
this is a repetition actually that we could see, I think.
No, well, here this actually blunders d6, so I think that was the whole point. I mean, this was my first thought too. I was like, oh, maybe that's a repetition. I was like, no, this is not.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that was clever. Maybe that's Goryachkina, so sneaky, just looking completely uninterested, just making some moves, and then... I mean, I fell for it. Just fell straight for it.
But maybe something like this. So now we're just looking for ways to find a repetition. So, okay, not there. That's not a repetition. Like here. This is a repetition.
I wonder if Bigfoot can get us a close-up. I like that Jeezy in the chat is saying, I love how Tan has lined up the white pieces she has taken. Neatness is underrated. Yeah, they do look very nice. Nice and lined up there.
She did it by value, right? It's like queen.
She actually didn't. That actually, it bugged me because I thought she had done it by value, but she has the 2 pawns, but then the knight, and then the rook, and then the knight. And then another rook.
Oh, okay.
And then the queen. But there's still some kind of... Maybe they're just in the order she took them, no? I think.
No, I think they traded knight first before rooks, yeah. No. No, they trade c8 first. Let me think. I want to say
it would be nice if they were in the order.
Oh, yeah, it is. They are in the order she took them. Okay. So bishop d1. This is like the second time we're seeing her think in this position. And we're not really expecting anything too dramatic to happen here. So probably some kind of a bishop move. And perhaps a repetition. I don't think... No, a4 is not a move. This pawn is hanging. Is she preparing to go a5 maybe? So takes, a6. Ooh, didn't like my a6. Why not? Is bishop c5 a move?
Yeah, bishop c5. And that's what I also...
Oh no.
But that tells you, I mean, even just this line, it shows you how we're both like, it's just, they'll agree a draw in a second, but it's never over somehow, I mean, within 10 seconds, we found a way for both players to lose the game still.
But But why is this losing? Is it something like bishop b3? Okay, bishop b3 is good, but not the best. So maybe take, bishop, take. I don't think bishop f3 works because take, king b6. Why is this losing? I'm assuming it's some kind of a... So I don't think this works either. I'm assuming it's some kind of a bishop b3.
Could there be some bishop c2? And if the bishop moves, can we take on f5? Is that ever in the position?
So here it doesn't work because I go back. So
No,
you
it
have to
just
try it
doesn't. Yeah,
after
for
a7. And bishop c2. Okay.
And
So
if you go
here,
there, can I take on f5? Oh no, I'm not in. No, not take on f5.
No. But apparently you do have some kind of a move here. Probably king d4 with the idea of taking on f5.
Or maybe bishop b3 actually, no?
Ah, yeah, of course. And then you take this pawn. Okay. So we got
Pan
here
must
by
be.
analyzing f5.
Yeah, and it must be a move she must be considering actually.
I wonder after a5, can I just go bishop c3 and just not allow anything crazy? Because takes, can I take this way?
By the way, she played bishop d5, so she did not go for a5, and I think we'll see. Probably just see a repetition now even before move 40.
How do we... What kind of repetition are we expecting? Maybe she's preparing a5.
Oh, I thought... Oh,
But
no.
okay, f5,
Oh, but...
f5 bishop c3, yeah. That's not going to be anything scary.
Yeah, no, I completely hallucinated. Can we see bishop e2? No, h4. Okay, never mind.
That's a pawn move.
Yeah.
Doesn't help.
That's not a repetition.
Okay, so maybe just... Oh. So let me see. I'm going to find a way to not make a draw here. So here, here, here. I'm just entertaining myself.
One of the things which is annoying as black here is that you always need to watch out for bishop h5, right? Is it already in the position here? Yeah.
Yes, but I had to make so much effort to make this work.
But still, you made it work, and it's a good example.
It's actually lost, right? Because I just come and take this. But yeah, because I was thinking, okay, maybe I can try to build a fortress here. Ooh.
No, but wait, here you can just take.
Hold on. Yeah, here you can take. So, oh no, here I got to c5. We don't have to. This is the second time I'm like confused about a king being in a square today.
Squares are hard. But it's funny because the current position on the board, it's almost like when you're the player, you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know, am I still playing for something or is she still playing for something? Because it just feels so that drawn. But then suddenly with every move, you need to reconsider like, okay, do I still need to be careful? Can I still try something? What's the best way to avoid any danger with this bishop h5? What do you think?
Actually, let's see. So if I go here as black, if I don't make any moves, can I go bishop c5? And if I take, am I losing? Apparently not. But can I take? No, this looks lost. Because this pawn is more dangerous than this pawn. Yeah, because my king is too close. So I should be able to stop this pawn somehow.
So you just move the bishop.
Back.
Maybe the other...
Oh my god, every move I make.
But the other way, I guess, then you don't allow the black bishop to come back, I guess. No, also not. Okay, bishop f7.
think maybe king d2. I found the move. Process of elimination. You have a limited
Oh
number of
my
moves to try
goodness.
all of them.
That game's so hard.
Okay. So we stop this guy, bishop comes back, and or bishop actually maybe just stays here. And okay, we queen the pawn. Long story short. So it's g6, but the engine says this is still. Hold on, what did I do? So here. So maybe
The
we
black
have to
shouldn't
go.
capture, yeah.
But then here. Oh, bishop a4 check.
Ah, yeah,
I
that's
think.
bad.
So black needs to just wait here.
Bishop.
Oh, maybe a4. No.
Even waiting, I mean, okay, we have what, 2 squares. I mean, okay, bishop e4, I guess, makes the most sense. Or...
No, there's only one move that doesn't lose.
Really?
Yes, we have to go king d7.
Oh my god.
Okay, so this bishop. Okay, so I think the fortress is you put a bishop on c6, and the king comes to this side because bishop h5 is now not possible.
This is crazy. I didn't think we were gonna get so much intrigue still.
Yeah, it's easy for us because we're not actually playing the game, right? Okay, h4, black is thinking. So we have rn3 to 12, 13 minutes, but okay, with 4 minutes to go, I don't think there's anything scary. But I wonder if she can try, if black can try to make some trouble for white. The time difference can actually be crucial. But I just, what can we do? a5? So a5, but okay, after a5 we said bishop here. So take, bishop takes, yeah, maybe check. Oh no. So check, if the king goes, now we can go take a pawn. It's just like everything, the engine just says 0-0. But okay, we're not taking a pawn, the pawn just goes to h5. I'm making things up.
Yeah, maybe just not playing g6 is the safest.
Yeah, but I'm also, I can also just take with the pawn. I don't have to do, I just wanted to force a bishop trade. Yeah, g6 is unnecessary. I'm just wondering if black can somehow, it's just a fortress, such a fortress. I don't think black can break through in any way. Because if black can somehow break through, then it's like, okay, we reached move 40, now black has like 5 hours on her clock.
Yeah.
And then white has to solve problems. So, but unfortunately, the position just doesn't have anything to offer, because that would actually be kind of significant.
But it's interesting how Tan is. She's for the first time in the game almost. It feels like she's taking her time here, just to make sure, you know, that she doesn't miss anything. But I think, yeah, she's doing the right thing, taking her time here, just double checking that there is nothing left in the position.
Yeah, unfortunately for her, there is nothing left in the position. A pair of knights would have been helpful. The bishops are too blockaded by these pawns. Yeah. So if we could just drop knights somewhere on the board, that'd be more interesting. If we could exchange this one pair of the bishop for knights, because knights do thrive in this kind of close positions. With like lots of pawns, a knight could, like, you can imagine a knight on either c4, somewhere on g4, h3, attacking these pawns. But without knights, just not much to do. I just hope she doesn't go into some kind of a 40-minute thing and then like 4 moves later then agree to a draw.
I know. Which move do you expect her to play?
Maybe a5, just exchange the pawns. I remember a coverage, it was on London Chess Classic, and I was working as a journalist, like social media journalist, and there was a point, I think it was Wesley versus Nepo. It was some kind of rook end game, and then Wesley just sits there and thinks for like 40 minutes. And it's the only game left. And you know, like how difficult it is as a commentator when like all these games have happened and there's one game left and everyone is just like drained because it's a classical
I
tournament.
know.
And they like to run out of things to cover because it's also the Ross round. So he thinks for 40 minutes and then they make like 2 moves and then they agree to a draw.
I
And
really, I
everyone
mean,
was just like, come on.
I was so certain we would be done by now. Okay, I will
So I
call
hope
out Bigfoot. So Bigfoot came up with a joke for us in chat, Tata.
in
Goryachkina
chat.
looks so bored here, you could call her Goryachkina.
Are we allowed to make this kind of joke? Is the question.
It's a
Okay,
dad joke, so
so-
we're not allowed. Bigfoot, I don't know. We'll let him get away with it, but we'll just let you get away with it.
That's wild. Do you think this game is gonna end before the Speed Chess Championship starts?
Yes. I mean, if it
You
does,
said it like you
so
said it so much certainty.
I had to convince myself.
Can we ban people for bad jokes? Yes.
Yeah, I think someone should ban Vic. It's not easy to ban him because he's a mod himself, but someone must have the power. How did we let that happen? Big ban. Yeah, 9 minutes here. Let me. 9 minutes 10 has been in the tank. On the previous move, Bishop d5, she spent 5 minutes, and those two moves are by far her longest things. No, she spent 5 minutes on b5 much earlier, and those are the only long things she has taken. But a5 is on the board.
Yeah, I would expect Bishop c3. I don't think White wants to take on a5 and create any kind of adventures. Actually, we also have to think if this is objectively good for White. Because, okay, so we know that at distance, the more far away a pass pawn is from action, the more dangerous it is. But the problem here is the king is a lot closer to this pawn, so this pawn might just fall at some point. I know we found some ways to lose because we went bishop c5 and we found a way to lose for black, but of course that is not necessary. And yeah, this pawn might become a really big weakness. So I think bishop c3 is more sane move and the move we should expect to see. So maybe she will try to like.
Just been played.
Yeah, this is what I would expect. And she took on b4, so I'm expecting her to take with the pawn. Because we saw that bishop b4 was... that was our problem with this move. Or we didn't. No, we saw a problem with this move when the pawn was on g6, and then we imagined things. Yeah, but I think this would be the easiest way. Takes, and we're reaching move 39. But okay, either way, we're already 41 or 31. So we're very close to move 41 with 4 moves away, actually. So I think we're going to see a draw very quickly. So just thinking which way to take. I think either one is fine.
Yeah,
I don't know which way she will decide.
The next move will be move 38. Then the question is, once we get to move 40, do you feel there is any feeling that both players will be reluctant to offer a draw? Do you not want to be the one to offer, or do you think there is no such thing here?
No, I think they already, by the time we reach move 40, I think there'll be mutual understanding that this game is ending in a draw. So I don't think we will see anything like that. So
Goryachkina is still thinking about in which way to recapture.
Can I do something like this? If you go g6, can I capture? This is like one of those things we learn, right? When we're learning like pawn breaks.
And it's working as well.
Yeah.
That's actually very nice.
King is too far away. So my point was, I wanted to put a bishop on g8 and ask you what you're going to do, but maybe it doesn't really matter.
Do you have to be worried
say
about
go here.
king? What if I go king d5? I know, then I get stuck somehow.
So I go here. And then
Maybe if I even
Yeah,
just
maybe.
go h6, maybe I'll just be fine there as well.
Yeah, take. And oh yeah, the king cannot even go here. What am I? This doesn't do anything. Yeah, I was thinking maybe the bishop can like create something, but no. So if I go here, you go here, h6. There's no way for a king to get to h5. Okay,
There's
so
a question.
Chan walks away.
There's a question
What's
from Amo. A question in the chat from Amo7 NRA. What about bishop d8, then bishop b6 for black if white takes bishop d4? So which line was that?
Yeah, I think this is an option for black. So I think I'll go bishop f8 probably. So you can check me. And now I have to find a square for my king. I have to make sure I don't blunder all my pawns. Maybe here. And then here. Like personally, I wouldn't want to allow something like this. I would take with the pawn because this would make me a bit nervous. Like why do any of this? Maybe at some point, yeah, bishop goes to c5 or something. So I think a takes b4 is more solid way of playing. But I think the reason we said bishop b4 because even in that position we didn't see any specific danger. But I don't think it's necessary to really allow any kind of play.
Yeah. Goryachkina, she has what, 3 moves? 3 moves to make, and she has just captured with the bishop.
Oh, she has. Let me see. Yes, I do see that. So 10 is actually not at the board. So perhaps we will see a bishop exchange, or I don't know. Maybe what's more likely, bishop exchange or bishop d8?
I don't know. I would think bishop exchange, but
I'm ready to be done with this game.
But also, I've had a bit of a cold the last few days. That I think I managed to get away without chat. I think I muted myself when I got my cough attack. But it's like my voice is slowly giving in. So it's like, okay, ladies, okay, the bishop's off.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So h6. Okay, so this is, I think, take, go h5, and this will be the end. Okay, I'm not going to say that. I take it back.
This will be the start of a very interesting bishop endgame. I don't know, h6, yeah. And I think we're about to see a handshake here.
So white has to make move 41, right, for a draw to happen. I don't think
black
they can agree.
I think black can offer on move 40, right? I think.
I don't know. I think this rules like change from tournament to tournament. Every time I go to an Olympiad, because there's like a captain meeting, and then they have this like, how to properly promote, how to make a claim. I feel like the rules change so frequently.
Because I think the reason I say that black can, because I think in game 2, black offered it on move 40. So at least that's what I'm basing myself upon.
It was move.
Goryachkina.
Oh yeah, it was move 40.
Yeah.
That was move 40. Okay, so do we have a move? No, h6 is played. So actually, she takes on h6. Opponent takes, she can offer a draw. Well, no, black can take back on h6 and offer a draw. So let's see if that's going to happen. I wonder what she is considering. I wonder if actually taking on g5. Let's say if I make a move. I think this is a mistake because I've takes g5 and
Yeah, this I wouldn't want to allow.
no, we don't wanna allow this. But okay, here black can play bishop h1, bishop anywhere, and no chances.
There's just
No
no
chances to win or
no
lose.
way through, right?
No, it's just a blockade. There's no way to get through. As we mentioned, the king cannot get to h5 because. Where can I take? No, I moved the bishop because after take, the only squares the king can get to h5 from are like this g4, g5. They're both covered. There is no entry on this side. It's just a fortress, so there's just nothing to do, and there is no way to try to lose this either. If the bishop starts going here, the king will just go to b6, and we will just wait with the bishop. Because if you attack, defend, and again, no entry square simply.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's interesting how it felt like when the pieces were coming off, we were going so quickly towards this endgame. But then both players actually took a bit of time in the endgame. So King D4 has been played. That's White's 40th move. And Black could offer a draw with her next move if she wants. But I don't
think she will.
She won't want to see.
She will. Oh yeah, I actually have to be careful because if the bishop goes to this diagonal, then this bishop b3.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Okay, so here probably let's see the players if there is any sign of someone offering a draw.
There was no draw, so I checked when Tan made her move. I was like so focused. Okay, what is bishop f3?
So bishop f2, again, important we don't blunder with bishop d5. This would be very unfortunate because white has a defended passed pawn. So something like e6 should already be a loss. But after bishop f3 check, we can simply put our king on b6, and we see similar position to what we saw before. I think we're still going to see a couple more moves. So we reach move 40, so Goryachkina gets more time on her clock. It will be added when she runs out of time. It's not automatically added. But I don't know. I think maybe she will check. The king will go to b6, a couple more moves, so we'll see some kind of a draw offer. But I think she's going to make a few more moves. I think we're still here for at least 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, White can, I don't know, maybe she can try to get the bishop around, but yeah, it's just hard to see because that White king has no entry. It's hard to see how she can really make anything happen here.
Yeah, it's just a fortress, so we'll be left with the last classical game tomorrow. And are you doing commentary tomorrow, you said?
Yeah, so I will be here tomorrow with Anna Maya. Very much looking forward to that. It'll be my first time doing commentary with her. And then I think we both said earlier, we think that a playoff is very likely, which I think you will be here for on Sunday, right?
Yeah, if there's a playoff, I will be here for it. We will see a playoff not after the round, but there is a specific day set for it. And tomorrow's game actually a pretty high stake game because if someone wins, they qualify without the playoff. And if not, then we're going into the tie breaks. And like the way that the match has, let's assume tomorrow will be a draw. I guess it will depend how it goes, but the way the match has progressed, who do you think, just based on this match, would be the favorite in the tie breaks, in the playoffs?
I find it so hard to say based on how I think based on how the match has gone so far, I would have to say Tan Zhongyi because in game one, if anyone had chances, it was her. I think game two was very even throughout most of the game, and today she comfortably equalized as black. So far, I would have to go with Tan Zhongyi.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think she is, based on this, hasn't had any problems in any of the games. She's been quite comfortable in all of them, and if anyone could have won, it was her. I think she had a bit of an edge yesterday, if I'm remembering the game correctly. There was there were some moments where I think she was on the better. At least she was definitely on the better side of the draw.
Yeah.
So she was the one pressing in this game. But I have to say, in like Lahno and Tanjongi match, Lahno was also the one who was always pressing, always pressing, but she lost the playoff. So I don't know how significant that is.
And just to answer Screw's question in the chat about how come our broadcast is live both on the main chess.com channel and on chess.com live, that is because in just an hour 20, the match between Nihal and Dingley Ren will start. And it's, I think, logistically easier if the stream is already up on chess.com live rather than having to boot it up when this channel goes offline. So, but Screw's been really nice seeing you here. Who's the next? Is asking Franco. Who's the next? What?
Just who's next?
Who's
Several questions next.
who's next? Late waits next in the candidates. Christian is saying this game could have been over an hour ago. Yeah, maybe not an hour ago, but I definitely expected it to end sooner. At this point, I'm not even, maybe I jinxed it again. I have no idea because I don't know. Will Goryachkina now for a draw? Will she? The problem is I'm struggling to see what can she try, but I've been saying that for many hours.
Yeah, I've said the 2 times I've done commentator. The first day the game was 5.5 hours. The second game was almost 6 hours. So
I know.
we're being here for hours, so we still have like 3 hours to go.
It's so crazy actually to think that the other day, because today it somehow feels, I think it's because the game was all in all quite uneventful. There was never really a big moment of tension where we felt one or the other could go wrong. It was always in the balance, and I think those games just feel longer because it's hard. Like when I think that the other day we were here for another 3 hours, I'm like, how is that? How is that possible?
How did we do it?
Yeah.
Well, they actually spend their time, so she spent an hour on the clock. So she spent that, so there's already an hour later. And then, yeah, this increment makes this game go forever. Okay, we have a move, bishop h5. So black is, Tanjongi is away from the board, so she will come back and she will make a move. And maybe we'll see a draw.
I see Lichan is saying, can't stop thinking of a big stroke now. My commiserations.
Oh no, now she went away from the board. Like, we cannot have a draw if the players are away from the board.
They are both back now, so the scene is set.
Oh, she's back. Okay, so we're ready. Getting ready for this draw offer. But someone has to make it. Okay, so she'll wait for a move, and I think at some point they will look at each other and they'll be like, okay, this is Fiona. Fiona is done. We need to call it a day.
So what move actually do you expect? Just, okay, she made a move. Bishop b3.
Bishop b3. Yeah, I think any move actually was fine. So she just chose one. Who is doing commentary for the Nihal versus Dingleren match? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'm sure Beck or some of the mods in the chat will know.
Do introverts just wait for the other player to offer a draw? Levy and Dania. Okay.
Levy and Daniel.
Does the engine say a slight advantage for white? It shouldn't. I don't know. Sometimes the engine just says things. I mean, honestly, sometimes that, like in some drawn position, it just says like one side is slightly better, but I don't know why I would say that in this position because it's just a fortress. And engines don't always know fortresses. I think a stronger engine would just say 000.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to. I was actually, funnily enough, wondering myself as we just saw Goryachkina's clock tick to zero, and then the half hour was added. Yeah, I think I agree with you that a stronger engine would just give us the 0-0. As Chris is asking, do we know where the women's championship match will be held? I don't think so. I think, as far as I know, we don't even know yet where the final of the candidates will be held, which will be the first thing to be determined. So Lei Tingzhe against the winner of this match will have to happen first. I think that's scheduled to happen in the first quarter of 2023. I'm not sure when the match is even scheduled for, but yeah, later in the year.
I'm not even sure we know the Dingleren match where it's going to happen. Do we know that?
Do I know? Sorry, what?
The Dingleren Nepo match? Do we know that?
No, I don't think we know that either. So a lot of things we don't know. What we're going to do, we're going to take a very quick break. Hope there's no handshake while we're gone. But yeah, it'll be a quick one. We'll be back very shortly. Don't go anywhere, and we'll see the result soon, I'm sure. See you guys then.
When Damon first approached me with the idea of teaching children to play chess, I thought, you want to do what? Oh, okay, whatever you want to do. I'm behind you, I support you, but how are you going to do that? And the more we talked about it, the more he laid out the plan. We tried some things, and 15 years later, we have a fabulous program.
Welcome back, and we just saw a handshake and a draw agreed between Alexandra Goryachkina and Tan Zhongyi. it took a little longer, Tatev, than we were expecting, but in the end, the result was never in doubt.
Yeah, so we finally got there, and this was a very short day for us. And the players came back from the day off. They had another short day, and tomorrow will be the final day of the classical chess. So it's going to be Goryachkina with the black pieces this time, Tanjongi with white. Can be it's going to be a very nerve-wracking game, very high-stakes game. The winner will just qualify to the next round. But we're talking about it, predicting most likely a drawn playoffs, but a lot at stake tomorrow.
Absolutely, a huge game, as you're saying, tomorrow. I will be here alongside Anna Maya. Before we let you guys go, quick look at the bracket. As we see, the match is still tied 1.5, 1.5, all draws so far. One final classical game tomorrow, same starting time as usual. That's 11 a.m. Central European time. 5 a.m. Eastern time, I think. So hopefully we
so
see you
too,
guys.
yes.
Hopefully we see you guys tomorrow. It's been great seeing you all in the chat. Of course, don't forget the SEC match between Ding Liren and Nihal Sarin starts in just over an hour. And yeah, Tata, I've really enjoyed doing commentary with you for these two games, and I'm looking forward to probably watching you commentate the playoff, the tiebreak on Sunday.
Yeah, the pleasure was all mine, and good luck tomorrow with commentary, and we'll see you guys later.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Enjoy the Nihal Ding match. We'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.